With my own hands, I tore out my eyes and gifted them to my younger sister, all so that she might continue to live. Yet, after she ascended to the rank of Great Emperor, she conspired with 9 other Great Emperors to seal me within the Samsara Seal, intending to refine me until my very soul was extinguished. However, in the moments before my demise, the Samsara Seal manifested the entirety of my life's memories. At this moment, every righteous cultivator stood gathered around the Samsara Seal. Even though I was already imprisoned within the seal until they witnessed my complete disintegration, they remained gripped by paralyzing fear. After all, I was the only powerhouse to ever reach the Heavenly Emperor realm. A man stepped forward and declared, "The Samsara Seal is an eternal divine artifact. It will take only 3 days to completely refine the Heavenly Emperor." This man was Wang Ting, the leader of the Righteous Alliance. It was precisely because of his treacherous ambush that the Emperor was successfully imprisoned within the Samsara Seal. As Wang Ting spoke, the physical form of the Heavenly Emperor began to fade and grow ethereal. Yet, in the very next heartbeat, the figure of the Heavenly Emperor suddenly vanished from within the seal. In an instant, panic rippled through the crowd. What was happening? Could it be that even an eternal divine artifact was unable to suppress the Heavenly Emperor? In contrast to the panic of the masses, Wang Ting merely offered a cold smile. As the Samsara Seal refines its captive, it projects the entirety of their past life. What you see now is merely the projection of the Heavenly Emperor's life. This only proves that the refinement is proceeding as planned. Hearing this, the crowd let out a collective sigh of relief. And I, who had just transmigrated into this body, had foolishly assumed that as a Heavenly Emperor I would be free to roam the world at will. But after merging with all the fractured memories, I was left utterly stunned. I had been sealed within this artifact by the Righteous Alliance, led by the son of Tianquan. In merely 3 days, my body would perish and my cultivation would shatter. This was truly a hellish start. I had no choice but to hurriedly sift through the merged memories, seeking a way to break this current deadlock. Outside the Samsara Seal, Wang Ting spoke with measured calm. Why not take this opportunity to witness the despicable deeds Emperor Yun has committed? Wang Teng's suggestion met with widespread approval, while Empress Ningbing, standing within the crowd, prepared to leave and return only after 3 days had passed. Her name was Bai Ningbing, and she was the younger sister of the Heavenly Emperor. Observing this, Wang Teng sneered, "Empress Ningbing, you should stay and watch. Only by confronting the inner demons of our hearts can we cultivators advance further." At this moment, the Empress consort flew to stand before Bai Ningbing. "Little sister, continue watching. I shall watch with you." Great Emperor Wang Teng spoke with great reason. The nightmare that has dogged our footsteps for so long must finally be confronted. Wang Teng's fiery gaze remained locked upon the two of them, before sweeping across the other several Empress figures. In the past, he lacked even the courage to meet the gaze of the 9 great Empresses. Now that the Heavenly Emperor is sealed, once I have completely refined him within the Samsara Seal, I shall successfully ascend to become the new Heavenly Emperor. At that moment, I will claim all 9 great Empresses as my imperial consorts. At this time, I felt a sliver of despair within the Samsara Seal. Even with my peerless cultivation, I could not shatter the seal from the inside out. Thus, my gaze came to rest upon the very Empresses gathered in the Great Hall. These individuals were once the closest to me. Only by swaying them to stand by my side once more, and having them shatter the Samsara Seal for me, could I hope to escape this confinement. The Samsara Seal is capable of projecting the past of those being refined. With that, I resolved to subtly alter the past and project those fabrications upon the seal. For someone like me, who grew up reading stories of the scorned rising to power, if I cannot bring these great Empresses to tears and have them beg for my forgiveness, I would sooner write my name in reverse. Yet even these alterations must remain grounded in reality. Slight, calculated adjustments would be sufficient. Finally, my gaze settled upon Bai Ningbing. She is known as the younger sister of the Heavenly Emperor, and the one who has known the Heavenly Emperor the longest. Given that these are memories from her early childhood, Bai Ningbing surely cannot recall them with absolute clarity. This worked to my advantage in turning Bai Ningbing against the Heavenly Emperor and toward my side. Thus, a scene from the Samsara Seal unfurled before the eyes of everyone in the Great Hall. Within the imagery, there appeared a small lush village nestled among green waters and blue hills, a family of 3 seated around a modest wooden table to share a meal. The father was a hardy middle-aged man, and the mother was a gentle, kind-hearted woman. At that moment, her belly was protruding, clearly suggesting she was with child again. The 5-year-old boy in the scene was the Heavenly Emperor in his youth. Gazing at the images within the Samsara Seal, Bai Ningbing murmured, "Are these truly my father and mother?" Since her birth, Bai Ningbing had possessed no recollection of her parents or brother. "Mother, I am about to give birth. Do you want a younger brother or a younger sister?" "I would like to have a younger sister. Little Hu from next door is always boasting to me about how sensible and considerate his younger sister is. Therefore, I also wish for a little sister. I have read many books in the town, and I have already chosen a name for her, Ningbing." Everyone within the Great Hall was astonished to learn that the name of the Empress Ningbing was bestowed personally by the Heavenly Emperor himself. Upon realizing that her own name came from the Heavenly Emperor, Bai Ningbing felt nothing but disgust for her own identity. After breakfast, I went fishing with my father. Relying on his seasoned skills, father caught 5 eels and I carried a few to the town. I sold the fish for a few copper coins and headed to the Hengwang bookstore. Over the past year, I have acquired a great deal of knowledge and discovered the existence of the cultivation world. It is said that powerful cultivators can even traverse the heavens on their flying swords. In one ancient text, I learned of the reincarnation eyes and the supreme bone. It is rumored that those who possess the reincarnation eyes are destined to become peerless under the heavens, along with many other legends of the heavenly emperors. At this moment, a flicker of pain flashed in Bai Ningbing's eyes. For the sake of future invincibility, you heartlessly chose to seize my reincarnation eyes? It is certain that when the heavenly emperor was young, he already knew of the existence of the reincarnation eyes, and it was that which birthed his evil intent to plunder them from Empress Ningbing. As the setting sun dipped below the horizon, I happily returned to the village after my studies, only to be struck with horror by the sight before me. Everywhere I looked, the village was littered with corpses, and even the lake water had been stained crimson. Upon reaching my home, I fell into utter despair. My father and mother both lay motionless on the ground. Chinger, yet to be born, had perished within my mother's womb. This scene caused the righteous alliance before the reincarnation seal to erupt in turmoil. This beginning defies all logic. If Bai Ningbing had not yet been born, then where does the current Empress Ningbing come from? Everyone's mind struggled to comprehend the situation. Bai Ningbing stood frozen in place, lost in her own thoughts. In the vision, I was weeping in gut-wrenching agony. It was clear that just that morning, everything had been peaceful. I had even prepared a name for my younger sister, but now it felt as if a lifetime had passed. Run! You must flee. At that moment, my father struggled to open his eyes, and with the last of his fading strength, he gasped out a few words. Beware, the Yama Palace. With that, my father breathed his last. I did not flee immediately, but instead knelt and bowed 3 times before the bodies of my parents. Then I searched the village for any other survivors. Witnessing the tragic carnage in the projection, the sword goddess Empress felt her heart ache with resentment as she spoke. You clearly experienced the agony of having your own village and kin slaughtered. So why in later years did you proceed until I confirmed that there was not a single living soul left in the entire village? I gathered the meager rations remaining in the house and fled, risking my life to reach the mountains. The deep mountains were teeming with ferocious beasts, so dangerous that even grown men dared not venture inside. Yet, relying on the hunting experience I had gained with my father, I endured the agony of thorns and brambles for 3 days and 3 nights in the wilderness. By then, my tears had long since run dry. My eyes bled tears of blood until my food supplies were completely exhausted. I prepared to descend into the town to hide my identity, intending to seek vengeance one day. However, I discovered that the entire town had also been slaughtered to the last man. The scene was as tragic as what had befallen my parents in the village. Not only the town, but the surrounding villages had all met the same fate. Returning to the village, I erected a tomb for my parents. After paying my respects, I dared not linger and prepared to leave. Because this place seemed to be under the influence of some dark cultivation technique, all the food had begun to wither and rot, becoming unfit for consumption. I then took my father's nameless hunting tools and ventured toward the other side of the great mountain range. Along the way, if I was thirsty, I would forage for wild fruits to sustain myself. When hungry, I would hunt beasts to fill my stomach. Initially, I was not proficient in the art of hunting, but gradually, I discovered the methods. As I reached the far side of the forest, I suddenly encountered a white tiger of immense proportions. Given the disparity in our sizes, I was fundamentally no match for it. After a brief struggle, I collapsed to the ground, utterly exhausted. As the white tiger lunged toward me with its maw wide open and my consciousness began to fade, a powerful resolve surged within my heart. I must survive. Under the influence of this intense willpower, my left pupil split in 2 at that very moment, and a formidable aura erupted from my body. The truth awakened at this exact moment, and the entire Orthodox alliance erupted in chaos. They could never have imagined that the heavenly emperor already possessed the double pupils. One must know that the double pupils represent the path to invincibility. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing cried out in disbelief, "You clearly already possess the double pupils? Why then would you seek to seize mine?" At this moment, Wang Teng stepped forward to slander the heavenly emperor. Everyone, he only possesses a single pupil, a variant. It is not the true double pupil. He must have seen that the Empress Ningbing possessed one and was overcome by malice. Altogether, the complete pair and achieve invincibility beneath the heavens. Once the double pupils fully awakened, I discovered that the speed of the white tiger had slowed countless times over. With a casual roll, I managed to evade the white tiger's strike. Yet at that moment, I remained unaware that this was an ability awakened by my double pupils. As the white tiger lunged again, I slid underneath its massive frame, plunging the long blade in my hand directly into its belly and carving a deep, fatal wound. With one final thunderous roar of fury, the white tiger collapsed, its life force extinguished. Afterwards, I made my way to the lake's edge to wash the blood from my body. Suddenly, through my reflection on the surface of the water, I caught sight of my left pupil. It was then that I realized I had awakened the double pupils, a phenomenon recorded only in ancient legendary texts. I was overcome with such joy that I wept. My parents' deep grievances could finally be avenged. In the days that followed, I fashioned the white tiger's hide into an outfit and roasted its flesh into dried meat to sustain myself. One night, I suddenly heard the voices of people. I concealed myself to observe, only to see a man and a woman carrying something. They moved in haste, and amidst their hushed tones, I could faintly hear them speaking. "Just discard this jinx here and let it fend for itself. Hurry. Let's go." What a streak of bad luck this is. The pair placed the bundle they were carrying onto the ground and departed in a rush. The sky was too dark to make out their faces clearly, but the infant girl in the swaddling clothes was visible to me with perfect clarity. The girl began to wail, and I hurried forward to scoop her into my arms. As soon as I held her, the infant ceased her crying. She blinked her eyes and let out a light laugh. I did not understand why her parents would abandon her, but she suddenly began to cry once more. I recalled the words of the elders who once said that a child stops crying when satiated. But in this desolate wilderness, where would I find milk? Gritting my teeth in desperation, I made a ruthless decision and bit down on my own finger. Fresh blood welled up instantly, and I pressed my finger to the infant's lips. The girl instinctively began to suckle. Her crying finally ceased, but as the flow of blood from my finger stopped, the girl began to wail loudly once again. Seeing this, I hurriedly bit into another finger to let her suckle, and for the entire night, I relied on this method to soothe her. Meanwhile, my own body was visibly wasting away with each passing hour. Observing the scenes unfolding, Bai Ningbing felt a chaotic storm of emotions rising within her. If that infant girl was indeed her, then she truly owed the Heavenly Emperor a debt of life. I carried the girl to a small village at the foot of the mountain and recounted the events to the village chief. The elder sent men to summon the other villagers. Before long, a man and a woman came rushing toward us in a panic. They immediately began to wail and weep bitterly. Our child has finally returned to us. I asked with a hint of suspicion, wait, just yesterday, was it not the two of you who personally abandoned this child? As soon as these words left my lips, the two of them reacted like cats having their tails stepped upon. She is our own biological daughter. That is correct. Have you ever seen parents abandon their own flesh and blood? I was not entirely certain if it was indeed these two from the previous night, but after a moment of hesitation, I handed the girl over to them. Jiaoshe, I prepared to depart from this place to venture further and see what lay beyond. However, before leaving, I decided to check on that family one last time. But as soon as I reached the window, I suddenly heard the little girl crying, followed by the irritated voice of the man. This brat cries at the slightest provocation. I still have to get some sleep. Since that boy is gone anyway, why don't we just abandon her again? The woman's voice chimed in. What if she is brought back again by some meddlesome fools? Perhaps we should sell her instead. We could sell her to another village to be raised as a child bride. Hearing this, I kicked the door open and shouted, do you people even deserve to be called parents? Simultaneously, my hands tightened around my wood-chopping blade and bow. The man, however, displayed an air of complete indifference. I brought her into this world, and how I choose to handle her is for me to decide. I clenched my fists and said coldly, are you not looking to sell her? Very well, I shall buy her. The man and woman asked in disbelief, a poor wretch like you, do you even have any money? I told them to wait a moment, then sprinted toward the mountain, fearing that something might go wrong. I dragged the carcass of the white tiger back to their doorstep and asked, is this white tiger enough for you? The woman was overjoyed and replied repeatedly, it is enough, but the man was even more avaricious. It is not enough, you must also give us the tiger skin garment you are wearing. You want the tiger skin garment? Only then did the man hand the little girl over to me. This jinx belongs to you now. From here on, she is your child bride, and you may do with her as you please. I carefully took the little girl into. Furthermore, she wore a lovely radiant smile on her face. I then carried the little girl into the depths of the night. I had no home left, and neither did she. From this day forward, we shall rely upon each other, never to be parted. I recalled the words I once spoke to my father about desiring a younger sister. With a gentle expression, I looked at the little girl and said, from now on, you shall be my younger sister. As long as your brother has a morsel to eat, I will never let you go hungry. As long as I am here, I will never let anyone bully you. From this day forth, your name is Bai Ningbing. At this moment, those within the Dian Alliance finally understood. This little girl was the current Ningbing Empress. Some even felt that the Ningbing Empress seemed to owe the Heavenly Emperor a great debt. Although they were not siblings by blood, their bond surpassed that of kin. Bai Ningbing then spoke in a cold, detached tone. The Heavenly Emperor saved my life. Once this matter concludes, I shall enter a life-or-death seclusion. From that point onward, I shall never step foot into the mortal realm again. After leaving that village, I sought a place of safety. I cradled little Ningbing until she fell asleep. The following day, I began my trek toward the next village. The most pressing matter now was to resolve the issue of Ningbing's nourishment. She could almost exclusively consume milk and was unable to digest other foods. By twilight, I had arrived at the next village. Although there was an abundance of cattle, sheep, and goats, I feared that animal milk would prove detrimental to Ningbing's delicate body. I inquired throughout the village, yet I could not find a suitable nursing mother. Thus, I continued my search, visiting 3 more villages in succession. Finally, I found a mother who met the requirements. However, she had her own demands. She insisted on an exchange of goods before she would nurse Ningbing. And so for the following days, I ventured into the mountains to hunt beasts, trading the lean meat for the milk Ningbing required. Those days stretched on for a long time. My body, which had once been fair and plump, began to wither and grow thin from the constant toll of hunting. Yet, when I saw little Ningbing's small face growing healthier and more radiant each day, I felt that every sacrifice was worth it. Some villagers, seeing my condition, could not bear it and advised me to simply abandon the child, but I refused them flatly. She is my sister. As long as I have a morsel to eat, I will never let her go hungry. No matter what happens, I will never forsake her. The woman who nursed little Ningbing was not a person without a heart of stone. My master grew increasingly frail, yet her requirements relaxed slightly, which eased the pressure upon me. Not long after, one day Xiao Ningbing finally learned to speak. Father, Xiao Ningbing chirped in her childish voice. Caught in the sudden joy of the moment, I corrected her, insisting she call me brother. Yet Xiao Ningbing persisted in calling me father. Finally, through my repeated efforts to correct her, Ningbing showed signs of progress. This time she managed to articulate 2 syllables. Although father had shifted into little worm, it was progress nonetheless. Following that, under my constant guidance, the number of words Xiao Ningbing could speak grew steadily. Brother, give me a piggyback ride like a great horse. Anything Xiao Ningbing desired, I would strive to fulfill. Eventually, by painstakingly saving every copper earned from selling beast meat, I managed to purchase an abandoned house in the village. In this way, the 2 of us siblings finally had a roof over our heads. However, this necessity left me suffering from prolonged malnutrition. Compared to my peers, I could be described as exceptionally thin. At this moment, murmurs of discussion rippled before the reincarnation seal. It must be said that the Heavenly Emperor treated Empress Ningbing with profound kindness during his youth. In a certain sense, Empress Ningbing could be considered the child bride of the Heavenly Emperor. However, when the crowd caught the murderous gaze of Bai Ningbing, they dared not utter another word. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing questioned her own mind. In the beginning, did he truly view me as his child bride? But why then did he change in the years that followed? After Xiao Ningbing grew a little older, I began to bring her up the mountain to hunt. Even so, we limited our excursions to relatively safe areas. Staying in the village forever was not a long-term solution. We had to see the world beyond. Moreover, as she grew, she began to require leaner meats in her diet. Because I hunted in this region so frequently, the wild beasts in the vicinity were nearly driven to extinction. Consequently, we 2 siblings would occasionally fall into a state of hunger, and the fruit in the mountains was limited almost entirely to papayas. Thus, from her early childhood, Xiao Ningbing consumed a great deal of papaya. At this point, the members of the Righteous Alliance considered a miraculous benefit of the papaya, but they dared not cast a single glance toward Empress Ningbing. Unconsciously, Bai Ningbing herself looked down to observe. Indeed, the effects were quite pronounced. 5 or 6 years passed in the blink of an eye. Both Xiao Ningbing and I had matured. I was now 11 years old, and this day was much like any other. While I was out hunting with little Ningbing, I caught a scent of lethal danger. In the distance, a pack of wolves was closing in on a young man. The youth appeared to be roughly my age. From a distance, I drew my bow and struck down 3 wild wolves. Relying on the power of my double pupils and my extensive combat experience, I single-handedly neutralized the entire pack. However, the youth had already been mauled to the point of unconsciousness. Ignoring the spoils of battle, I cradled little Ningbing in one arm and carried the youth on my back, rushing home with all haste. I applied medicinal herbs to stem the youth's bleeding. At that moment, my gaze sharpened. Embedded within his ribcage was a bone etched with profound runes. Could this be the legendary Supreme Bone? Ancient texts state, "He who possesses this bone is destined to become the supreme sovereign of the human race." At this revelation, everyone in the Alliance drew a sharp intake of cold air. Simultaneously, every gaze in the assembly converged upon a great emperor. This man was the sworn brother of the Heavenly Emperor. Lin Xiaoyao had once suffered grievous wounds and had his supreme bone cruelly extracted, and subsequently, under the guidance of great Emperor Wang Teng, he was led to believe that it was the Heavenly Emperor who had stolen it from him. This was the very reason Lin Xiaoyao had joined the Orthodox Alliance. Lin Xiaoyao admitted with indifference, indeed the one who saved me in my youth was the Heavenly Emperor. The crowd was enlightened, concluding that it made sense, yet one question remained incomprehensible to them all. If the Heavenly Emperor would eventually extract Lin's supreme bone, why did he not strike at that very moment? One must realize that this was a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. Wang Teng, convinced he had unraveled the truth, spoke up. It is simple. It must have been the influence of the young Empress Ningbing who remained by the Heavenly Emperor's side. At that time, the Heavenly Emperor harbored evil intent, but the pure-hearted Empress Ningbing intervened, preventing him from acting. He did not extract the supreme bone from Brother Xiaoyao. The assembly found Wang Teng's logic highly persuasive. Bai Ningbing watched the scene in silence, for she could no longer clearly recall the events of her childhood. In her youth, she had endured a great calamity, and all memories prior to that ordeal had become profoundly blurred. In the projection, little Ningbing spoke with innocent curiosity. I tended to the young Lin Xiaoyao's wounds while offering a brief explanation to Xiao Ningbing. It is a formidable bone. Possessing it is the key to becoming the most powerful supreme being in the world. Xiao Ningbing did not grasp the deeper complexities of the situation and spoke with complete innocence. Then let us dig it out so that brother can become the great supreme being. At this moment, everyone in the alliance was left speechless, all turning to look at Wang Teng with strange expressions. No matter how one looked at it, the Ningbing Empress was clearly fanning the flames. Wang Teng's face was filled with awkwardness, as children often speak without restraint. Since the Ningbing Empress was still young and unaware of the implications of her words, it was understandable that Bai Ningbing struggled to remain calm. She never imagined that she herself would have been the one to pour oil on the fire, inciting the Heavenly Emperor to extract a supreme bone. To Xiao Ningbing's suggestion, I simply shook my head and replied, "Little sister, we cannot do such a thing. No matter how valuable another person's possessions may be, in the end, they belong to someone else. One must walk the path of the undefeated. There is no need to borrow the bones of others." Everyone in the alliance felt deeply shaken. To think that even in his youth, the Heavenly Emperor possessed such enlightenment and persistence. It is no wonder he could later ascend to the throne of the Heavenly Emperor. The path of the undefeated is one's own to forge. Why would one need to covet the bones of another? This statement was truly profound. I have finally grasped the true character and spirit of the Heavenly Emperor. Such steadfast conviction and belief are truly beyond that of ordinary men. To stand before the temptation of a supreme bone, especially given such a perfect opportunity, and yet refuse to strike. I fear that none of those present here today would be able to remain so indifferent. Bai Ningbing committed the words to memory. Brother is right, another's possessions will always remain theirs. I shall etch this lesson into my heart. But as she thought of how she would later be stripped of her twin pupils by the Heavenly Emperor, her expression darkened. After laboring for half the day, I finally staunched the bleeding for the youth, and his wounds were crudely dressed. Under my care, the youth finally regained consciousness. He opened his eyes and asked, "Was it you who saved me?" "It was I." Our dialogue was brief. Shortly after, I roasted a wolf and handed the youth a leg of meat. The youth did not stand on ceremony and began to eat in large bites. He was in dire need of replenishing his strength. Once he had eaten his fill, the youth said, "I, Zhao Yao, have never owed anyone a debt of gratitude. What is it that you want?" I pondered for a moment before asking, "Are you a cultivator?" Earlier, when the youth was besieged by 7 wolves, I noticed he possessed a certain level of strength, much like the cultivators described in the texts. The youth nodded. "Can you teach me how to cultivate?" "I wish to protect my little sister." The youth shook his head again. To become a cultivator, one must begin their training from a tender age. You have already missed that opportunity, but I wish to try regardless. Because even if there is the slightest shred of hope, I must seize it. The youth pondered for a moment before withdrawing a cultivation manual from his robes. "This is a cultivation technique. How much you are able to comprehend depends entirely upon yourself." The members of the Alliance took one glance and realized it was a foundational technique of the lowest grade, one so common that no one would even stoop to pick it up if found on the roadside. Yet for me, during my youth, it was considered a precious treasure. I carefully tucked it away and expressed my deepest gratitude to the youth. We then exchanged names, and once his injuries had sufficiently healed, he departed. The members of the Alliance began to whisper among themselves. Is it possible that the Heavenly Emperor relied solely on this basic manual to eventually rise and become a sovereign of the heavens? Wang Teng exclaimed, "That is impossible. The Heavenly Emperor must have encountered some fortuitous opportunity later in his life to reach such heights. Then, before the eyes of all present, it took me only the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to form my chi and enter the chi refining stage." Seeing this, the crowd drew a sharp intake of breath. For them, even the fastest breakthrough into the chi refining stage had taken 3 months. The realms of the cultivation world are divided into chi refining, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, spirit severing, Tao seeking, tribulation transcendence, great completion, true immortal, immortal king, immortal emperor, and great emperor. Many ordinary people cannot even form a chi to enter the chi refining stage in their entire lifetime. Yet the young Heavenly Emperor had managed it with ease, using nothing more than a tattered manual to reclaim his honor. Wang Teng spoke up once more. It seems these were merely the innate advantages of the Heavenly Emperor, but this also implies that the very fact the Heavenly Emperor embarked upon the path of cultivation is owed entirely to Lin Xiaoyao. If he had not gifted that manual, perhaps the Heavenly Emperor would have lived an entirely ordinary life. At this moment, Ye Xiaoyao spoke up. The Heavenly Emperor's ability to tread the path of cultivation did indeed originate from me. Regardless of what the Heavenly Emperor has become, he was once my sworn brother. Participating in the siege against him fills my heart with lasting shame. Once these events have concluded, I shall enter a life-or-death seclusion, and from that day forth I will detach myself from worldly affairs. Just then, someone cried out, "Look quickly, the aura of the young Heavenly Emperor is still soaring without pause." In a remarkably short period, I had reached the 6th level of chi refining before finally stopping. It was not that I could not ascend further, but rather that I was worried Xiao Ningbing would be hungry, so I had to find food for her. Once Xiao Ningbing was well fed, I resumed my cultivation. As time passed, I advanced from the 6th stage of chi refining to the foundation establishment realm. At that moment, the Alliance was completely thrown into an uproar. Achieving foundation establishment in a single day is an unprecedented feat, rarely seen throughout the heavens. Many were left in shock by this display, yet Wang Teng insisted that it was entirely due to the double pupil eyes. With every word he uttered, he lost no opportunity to slander the Heavenly Emperor. Meanwhile, witnessing this scene, Lin Xiaojiao felt a profound sense of inner conflict, his heart overflowing with bitterness and sorrow. In the past, he and the Heavenly Emperor were sworn brothers, yet the Emperor eventually turned cruel, tearing out his supreme bone. Eldest brother, could it really be because of a mere fragment of a supreme bone? Could that truly make you transform into the man you are today? Yi Xiaojiao kept these words buried within himself. No one else knew of his thoughts. Even now, Lin Xiaojiao still referred to the Heavenly Emperor as his eldest brother, but he could not help but release a heavy sigh. My eldest brother has truly changed beyond recognition. In the days that followed, aside from my own cultivation, I began to guide Xiao Ningbing in her training. I had finally realized the true benefits of cultivation. Although I did not wish for Xiao Ningbing to become embroiled in my future quest for vengeance, I knew that if Xiao Ningbing could grow stronger through cultivation, having an extra measure of self-defense would be for the best. By now, everyone in the Alliance was filled with anticipation. They had seen the Heavenly Emperor break through from chi refining to foundation establishment in a single day, and since Empress Ningbing also possessed the double pupil eyes, They reasoned that her talent must surely be extraordinary as well. Wang Teng was even more adamant, declaring, "Watch closely, everyone. Empress Ningbing's cultivation speed will surely be equally meteoric. The Heavenly Emperor was merely lucky to possess the double pupil eyes. Perhaps Empress Ningbing's subsequent progress will be even faster than his." The crowd found themselves in agreement. I provided Xiao Ningbing with a cultivation manual to follow. At first, I offered no direct guidance. After all, when I first started, there was no one by my side to mentor me. Moreover, I was concerned that if I intervened, my instructions might not be suited for her, which could lead her down the wrong path, so it was far better for her to cultivate through her own enlightenment. However, during the forget about sensing the dantian in the blink of an eye or entering the qi refining stage instantly. 2 full days had already drifted by, and Xiao Ningbing had not even shown a flicker of progress toward sensing her dantian. "This is too difficult. Could you please guide me, brother?" Xiao Ningbing asked, looking at me with a dejected expression as she sought my help. At this moment, the most embarrassed person in the alliance was Wang Teng. Everyone cast their eyes toward him, filled with doubt. Wang Teng cleared his throat, stating that Empress Ningbing was, after all, still very young, her mind not yet fully developed, but with someone to offer guidance by her side, her speed of cultivation would surely be able to catch up to the Heavenly Emperor's. The others found this reasoning sound, believing that after the young Heavenly Emperor offered his guidance, the Empress would surely be able to comprehend everything. However, although Xiao Ningbing was pleading for my help, I pondered for a moment and ultimately decided not to guide her immediately. In my view, a method discovered through one's own realization is undoubtedly superior to one taught by another. I had initially assumed that by doing this, I could make Xiao Ningbing's cultivation journey smoother, yet unexpectedly this state of stagnation dragged on for another 2 days. Xiao Ningbing still had no way to grasp the sensation of her dantian. Thus, I decided to impart my own personal cultivation method to her. "Little sister, contemplate this manual and see if it resonates with your spirit. If it does not feel appropriate, you must never force it." Xiao Ningbing nodded obediently, and afterward she spent several more days practicing with the method I had taught her, but the result remained the same. She could not enter the state of dantian resonance. At this moment, everyone in the alliance was completely bewildered. Now that she clearly had someone offering direct guidance, the fact that she still could not sense her dantian was truly beyond all reason. Seeing the gazes of the crowd fixated on him once again, Wang Teng could only cough dryly and say, "This is perhaps related to her mind not being fully awakened in her youth. I believe that in a few more days, Empress Ningbing will be able to enter the qi refining stage." But the events that followed left everyone staring in utter astonishment. Half a year had passed within the reincarnation seal, yet Xiao Ningbing still could not sense her dantian. For over half a year she had not made the slightest bit of progress. With talent such as this, one could truly call it remarkably ordinary, and there were even minor cultivators whose innate talent was perhaps not as poor as Xiao Ningbing's. Under the skeptical gazes of everyone present, Wang Teng put forward the reasoning he deemed most plausible. "Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one possible explanation. Empress Bingning has yet to awaken her double pupil eyes. We must remember that the Heavenly Emperor only awakened his double pupil eyes after witnessing the massacre of his village. It appears that awakening such power requires specific conditions." At this moment, Bai Ningbing fell into deep contemplation. She only recalled encountering a great calamity during her childhood. After she regained consciousness, her double pupil powers had indeed awakened. As for the origin of that power, she had always assumed it would manifest naturally once a certain threshold was reached. Wang Teng finally reached a tentative conclusion. "Everyone, please hear me out. I believe that to awaken the power of the double pupils, it is highly probable that one must be spurred by profound hatred, triggered when one's life is hanging in the balance." This conjecture immediately received the approval of those present. The words of great Emperor Wang Teng are logical and well-founded. He is truly worthy of being groomed for the position of the future Heavenly Emperor. You are all too kind if my hypothesis proves correct. In truth, the Heavenly Emperor did not save Empress Bingning's life at all. On the contrary, he hindered Empress Bingning from awakening her double pupil power. If the Heavenly Emperor had not appeared back then, the wild beasts would have inevitably discovered Empress Bingning while she was still an infant. Facing the threat of death at that critical juncture, Empress Bingning would have very likely awakened her double pupil powers. Therefore, no matter how one looks at it, the Heavenly Emperor impeded Empress Bingning's path to becoming a supreme powerhouse. Everyone agreed wholeheartedly with Wang Teng's deduction. They all felt that it was the Heavenly Emperor who had held Empress Bingning back. Had it not been for him, Empress Bingning's current achievements would have been far greater. Perhaps she might even have become the Bingning Heavenly Emperor. Bai Ningbing witnessed this scene, yet she felt a profound sense of uncertainty. She asked herself in her heart, did the Heavenly Emperor truly prevent me from awakening my double pupil power? Within Bai Ningbing's heart, a vague intuition stirred that the truth did not appear to be as they claimed. Throughout the time that followed, little Ningbing remained unable to sense her qi. In the end, she herself gave up. She decided to let go and ceased all efforts to cultivate. Though I was helpless to change her situation, I did not force her. If my younger sister cannot cultivate, then I shall simply protect her well in the future. During that half year, my cultivation advanced from the Foundation Establishment realm into the Golden Core realm. 2 more years passed, and I had ascended from the Golden Core realm to the peak of the Nascent Soul realm. However, regardless of how I cultivated thereafter, Their cultivation remained stagnant at the peak of the nascent soul stage. No matter how diligently they researched their cultivation techniques, they could not step into the spirit-severing realm. At this moment, the terrified Alliance finally understood that the Heavenly Emperor had been cultivating nothing more than a basic standard technique. This type of technique reaches its absolute limit at the nascent soul stage. It is fundamentally impossible to reach the spirit-severing realm, and even reaching the peak of the nascent soul stage is merely a theoretical possibility. It could be said that the young Heavenly Emperor's current realm was the limitation of the technique itself, not the limitation of the Heavenly Emperor. It is difficult to imagine. If the Heavenly Emperor had been granted a superior cultivation manual, to what heights could he have ascended during his youth? 3 years passed. Xiao Ningbing and I had both grown. I was now 14, and Xiao Ningbing had reached the age of 8. Brother, it is so boring here. Can we go to the town and look around? I heard there are many interesting things over there. Xiao Ningbing had finally learned to call me brother. Every day, she followed me up the mountain to hunt beasts, returning to the village, or at most, wandering through the nearby settlements. Such days were novel at first, but after a long time she began to feel restless. Recently, Xiao Ningbing heard that the market in the large town was very lively, and she was eager to see it. Believing that my current strength was sufficient to protect my younger sister, I agreed. Very well, let us go to the town today to enjoy ourselves. Upon hearing this, Xiao Ningbing jumped with excitement. Brother is the best, truly the best. Xiao Ningbing's words were filled with adoration for her brother and the pure joy of being allowed to venture out. Xiao Ningbing dressed herself beautifully, even wearing her finest garments. Although she was still very young, I could already perceive the stunning, peerless beauty she would possess in the future. I brought Xiao Ningbing to the town by flying. Upon entering the city, Xiao Ningbing was left breathless by the bustling, prosperous sights before her. It is so lively here. There are so many people. I've never seen so many people in my life. Brother, their clothes are so beautiful, especially those people riding on horses. Wow, brother, what is that? Is that the opera that people always talk about? Xiao Ningbing exclaimed in astonishment, finding everything she saw to be a new discovery. I wore a faint smile, tirelessly explaining things to Xiao Ningbing. However, if there were matters I did not understand, I would frankly admit it. Little sister, it is no matter if I do not understand this. After all, your brother is the most capable, and even the little Ningbing paid no attention, but upon witnessing this scene, Bai Ningbing's knuckles turned white as she clenched her fingers tightly. She vaguely recalled that her great calamity seemed to have begun here, after which I led the carefree little Ningbing to stroll around the town. Elder brother, is that a candied hawthorn? Do you wish to eat a candied hawthorn? Little Ningbing already had some money on her. The moment she saw the vendor, she rushed forward in excitement. Little sister, slow down. Seeing little Ningbing running so fast, I hurried to follow her. But at that very moment, high above in the clouds, a cultivator with white eyebrows and a cold, sinister expression was observing the entire town, and then his gaze settled upon little Ningbing. To think that in a town as ordinary as this, there would be a young girl possessing such spiritual aura. The white-browed cultivator immediately waved his hand, and young girls from many households lost all control, rising into the air toward the clouds simultaneously, including little Ningbing. She cried out loudly, "Elder brother, save me, brother!" Beside her, many parents from other families were also wailing in agony. They tried to grab their daughters, but a seemingly invisible force violently pushed them away. After falling, those parents no longer showed any signs of life. The scene was utterly cruel. I desperately tried to reach for little Ningbing, but that invisible force suppressed me directly to the ground. The white-browed cultivator was slightly astonished, not expecting such a small, insignificant town to harbor a nascent soul-stage cultivator, yet he did not care in the slightest. Once I obtain the souls of these young maidens, my cultivation base will certainly be able to advance further, and by then, even the heavenly tribulation will be unable to touch me. The people of the Alliance immediately understood. This white-browed cultivator was a practitioner at the Tao integration stage, a level against which the young Heavenly Emperor could currently offer no resistance, and furthermore, he was openly harvesting the souls of young maidens to nourish his primordial spirit. Such an atrocity, if committed today, would surely result in all cultivators uniting to purge him. At this moment, someone muttered that after the Heavenly Emperor ascended to the throne and amended the laws for cultivators, he had indeed made significant contributions to the world. At the very least, such a miserable state of affairs had been greatly diminished. At this moment, Wang felt the time had come. The Ningbing Empress was currently facing a life-threatening crisis. Surely she would awaken the power of the Double Pupils in this moment of extreme peril. Emperor Wang Teng was correct. If both siblings possessed the power of the Double Pupils, it was not impossible to contend with the white-browed cultivator. However, the scene unfolding before them was heart-wrenching. I desperately pursued little Ningbing, instinctively burning my life essence, yet the gap in our strength was too vast. No matter how hard I tried, I could not catch up. Then I watched as this white-browed cultivator ruthlessly extracted little Ningbing's soul. Little Ningbing's face instantly turned vacant and rigid. This signified that little Ningbing had lost all traces of life. At that instant, the Alliance fell into total turmoil. What in heaven's name was happening? Not only had little Ningbing failed to awaken the power of the Double Pupils, but she had perished in her youth. How, then, could the Ningbing Empress currently standing in the Alliance be explained? Once a soul is extracted, it signifies the absolute end of life. and if you have already died, it is impossible for you to awaken the power of the Double Pupils. Those in the Alliance had originally assumed that in this moment of crisis, the young Ningbing Empress would awaken the Double Pupils, and subsequently join forces with the young Heavenly Emperor to defeat the white-browed Cultivator. But the events transpiring in the vision left everyone feeling as though the situation defied all logic. Wang Teng struggled to offer an explanation based on his own reasoning. Perhaps after the white-browed Cultivator extracted the soul of little Ningbing, he merely stored her within his artifact rather than consuming her entirely. Later, the young Heavenly Emperor would defeat this Cultivator and release the Ningbing Empress's soul, thereby saving her. Even as he spoke these words, Wang Teng himself did not believe them. After all, for the current Heavenly Emperor to kill this white-browed Cultivator, one might as well be dreaming. He could no longer fathom the trajectory of the events within the vision. How would the situation unfold from here? Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing stood rooted to the spot, dazed and motionless. She vaguely remembered encountering a great calamity, and after awakening, she was left with a lingering sense of rebirth. At this very moment, the white-browed Cultivator in the vision made his move, completely devouring the souls of all the young girls. In an instant, the primordial spirit of the white-browed Cultivator grew stronger at a rate visible to the naked eye, and his overall aura surged by several degrees. Everyone in the Alliance was, at the very least, a powerhouse of the quasi-emperor level or higher. They naturally understood what this signified. This signifies that once the soul of the young Ningbing is consumed, there will be no hope of survival remaining. Could it be that Empress Ningbing perished at this very moment? If that is the case, then why is the Empress Ningbing standing here before us, helping us attack the Heavenly Emperor? All of this has surpassed the limits of my understanding. Can anyone tell me exactly what is happening here? Just then, a thought flashed through Wang Teng's mind, and he offered a conjecture. Everyone, I have a rough idea of what this situation entails. Although the young girl in this vision shares the same name as Bai Ningbing, she is not the true Bai Ningbing. In all likelihood, this young Ningbing has already met her end. It is probable that the Heavenly Emperor later adopted another sister, and that subsequent sister is the Empress Ningbing we see today. Even though the crowd felt this theory lacked a certain veracity, it appeared to be the most plausible explanation available at the moment, especially since the young Ningbing in the vision had already completely perished. Meanwhile, Bai Ningbing watched the events in the vision, feeling deep down that matters were not nearly so simple. At this moment, everyone in the coalition army heard the heart-wrenching, soul-shattering wails emanating from the reincarnation seal. My desperate cries finally drew the attention of the white-browed Cultivator. He did not hold me in any regard. Instead, he tossed the lifeless body of the young Ningbing toward me and asked, "Do you want her? Come and take her then." I caught the young Ningbing with the utmost care. At this moment, there was not a single trace of color left on her face, and it felt as though thousands of blades were frantically hacking at my heart. "Little sister, how are you? Answer me." In truth, no matter how loudly I called out to her, the young Ningbing could no longer respond to me. Her pale lips and bloodless face confirmed the truth. I knew that this signaled the end of the young Ningbing's life. After the white-browed Cultivator had devoured a massive quantity of the young girl's soul, he prepared to find a location to undergo his lightning tribulation. But just as the white-browed Cultivator prepared to depart, I blocked his path and shouted, "Return my sister to me." Seeing my frantic demeanor, the white-browed Cultivator merely sneered. "Little child, your sister is already dead. If you do not know when to back down, do not blame this old man for what comes next. If that is how it must be, then I shall kill you to pay for my sister's life." Having said this, I pressed forward to confront the white-browed Cultivator. The white-browed Cultivator had disregarded me entirely, yet a single strike. The white-browed Cultivator discovered that this youth, despite clearly being at the nascent soul stage, possessed the true combat prowess of a mid-stage deity transformation expert. The white-browed Cultivator immediately grew vigilant. "Little brat, which sect do you belong to? If you share a predestined fate with this old man, I may spare your life today. Although you have offended me so gravely." As a cultivator, he was primarily concerned that if this youth were the descendant of a major clan, he truly could not afford to provoke such a force. Thinking of this, the white-browed cultivator felt a pang of regret. He should never have come to this small town today. However, there was one detail that left the white-browed cultivator deeply puzzled. If he were the successor to a major power, then why would the youth's younger sister be so entirely ordinary? Yet at this moment, I did not heed a single word, directly striking out with a palm toward the white-browed cultivator. This was a combat style I had perfected during my long periods of hunting. The white-browed cultivator wore an expression of utter disbelief at this moment. It was sword intent, yet the white-browed cultivator noticed the youth held no blade in his hands. He was manifesting sword intent through his bare palms alone. The white-browed cultivator had ultimately been too careless. Struck by my blow, the robes across his chest instantly disintegrated. Allowing the white-browed cultivator no time to recover from his shock, I lunged forward again, engaging him in fierce close-quarters combat. At this moment, facing a cultivator in the Tao integration realm with a cultivation base far superior to my own, I relied entirely on my frantic battle instincts. Yet, in the eyes of any onlooker, this was nothing short of rushing headlong to one's death. Under my reckless and domineering assault, one that disregarded my own safety, the white-browed cultivator was momentarily thrown into disarray. Suddenly, the white-browed cultivator let out a cold hum. The pressure of his Tao integration realm aura blasted me away, yet I did not falter for an instant. As I engaged the white-browed cultivator in melee, I kept Bai Ningbing shielded in my arms, ensuring she did not suffer the slightest harm. Even now, as she had become a corpse turning slowly cold, a raging fire of fury burned within me. My pupils began to split into two in the blink of an eye. An invisible wave of pressure rippled outward. The white-browed cultivator was rendered completely aghast. He immediately recognized this to be the heavy eyes. Simultaneously, a look of maddened joy appeared on the white-browed cultivator's face. He thought to himself, if he could seize the power of the heavy eyes, he would no longer have to fear the lightning tribulation. Not only would he overcome his tribulation, but reaching the great completion, becoming a true immortal or even a quasi-emperor, would all be within his reach. Even the path to immortal emperor or great emperor was not beyond his grasp. Especially when he saw that the youth before him possessed only the cultivation of the nascent soul stage, Cultivator Bai Me felt even more that the heavens themselves were favoring him. Ha ha ha, little child, I shall use the power of your double pupils to propel myself toward the path of the great emperor. Having said this, Cultivator Bai Me reached out his large hand, striking toward the youth whom he had already restrained. But at that very moment, a dark glow flashed within my eyes, and the restraint imposed by Cultivator Bai Me was shattered on the spot. Upon seeing this, Cultivator Bai Me could not help but mutter to himself that it was indeed worthy of the power of the double pupils. At this moment, Cultivator Bai Me dared not be careless. He was convinced that as long as he fought seriously, this youth would have absolutely no chance of victory. Following a loud roar from Cultivator Bai Me, a pitch-black soul banner appeared in his grasp. Everyone in the Alliance felt immense indignation at this sight, for they knew how many lives had been ruthlessly extinguished by this wretch to empower that soul banner. Furthermore, one could sense from the banner that those slaughtered by Cultivator Bai Me were innocent commoners. The cultivators in the Alliance were truly driven to madness, burning with the desire to slay this monster on the spot. Cultivator Bai Me channeled the power of the dark vengeful spirits from the banner, which surged forward to ensnare my shoulders. Cultivator Bai Me intended to use this opportunity to crush my shoulders into dust, but in the very next instant a golden light erupted from my double pupils, and a brilliant radiant golden longsword shot forth. This scene left everyone in the Alliance trembling with shock. Could this truly be the manifestation of divine weaponry born from the power of the double pupils? I estimated that this golden longsword was at the very least a high-grade spiritual artifact. Even though a high-grade spiritual artifact was of little significance to these experts, they understood that for the youth who would become the Heavenly Emperor, such a high-grade artifact was an absolutely divine weapon. For the soul banner that Cultivator Bai Me had spent his entire life refining barely reached the threshold of a mid-grade spiritual artifact. The power of the double pupils had only just been revealed, yet it could already manifest a high-grade spiritual artifact from the void. Then, how terrifying would the power of the Heavenly Emperor's double pupils become in the future? Suddenly, a seed of doubt sprouted in the hearts of those watching. It seemed they had never once seen the Heavenly Emperor utilize this particular ability of his double pupils. As I swung the golden longsword, the spirits within Cultivator Bai Me's banner recoiled upon touching the golden radiance of the blade, scattering in frantic retreat much like mice scurrying from a cat. Shortly thereafter, a glint in my eyes caused the golden longsword to transform into a massive golden greatsword. Under my relentless assault, Cultivator Bai Me's soul banner was slashed to pieces, shattering into countless fragments on the spot. Cultivator Bai Me suffered an immediate backlash, coughing up a large mouthful of his vital essence. At this moment, Cultivator Bai Me was filled with absolute terror. He had never expected that, despite the two-realm gap between himself and this nascent soul youth, he would end up having his foundational Dharma treasure shattered by the boy's strike. The entire alliance fell silent in an instant, because they had realized that the massive golden sword was a quasi-immortal emperor artifact, and the power of the double pupils was truly this terrifying. Soon, a quasi-immortal emperor expert noticed a drop of golden blood trickling from the eyes of the young heavenly emperor. Without a second thought, this quasi-emperor stepped forward. In the very next moment, the expert clutched his eyes and let out a wretched scream, his body convulsing in agony. Panic rippled through the crowd, no one understanding what was unfolding before them. Wang Teng hurried to explain, "Do not approach the reincarnation seal. When you draw near the reincarnation seal, the suffering endured by the person in the projection is transmitted outward at an equivalent intensity. Fellow Taoists, if your cultivation has not reached the immortal emperor realm, please do not draw near. If one has already reached the immortal emperor level, one might conversely be able to ignore it." Wang Teng had not yet finished speaking the final words, intending to demonstrate by stepping toward the reincarnation seal when his face turned deathly pale in the next heartbeat. Had he not swiftly used his cultivation to seal his senses, he would have ended up in the same wretched state as that quasi-immortal emperor. More than a dozen immortal emperors, following Wang Teng's logic, believed that their immortal emperor-level cultivation would allow them to brush off this pain. Thus, they stepped forward without the slightest hesitation. Yet, the very next moment, more than a dozen harrowing screams erupted in a frenzy. Everyone present scrambled to distance themselves from the reincarnation seal. Wang Teng's complexion was pale, his expression tinged with embarrassment. This was my oversight. The sensations transmitted by the reincarnation seal ignore the cultivation level of the observer. Even a great emperor would feel this pain as if it were their own. I implore you all, do not approach under any circumstances. Upon hearing this, not a single soul dared to take another step forward. However, at this moment, Bai Ningbing took the initiative to approach the reincarnation seal. With every step Bai Ningbing took, the agony in her eyes intensified by a fraction. As the distance between her and the reincarnation seal narrowed, the pain she endured multiplied tenfold. Bai Ningbing stood before the reincarnation seal, feeling the agony yet refusing to stir. Those who had just experienced that same pain could not help but wonder, how was it that the young heavenly emperor at that time managed to endure such immense suffering? One must remember that he was at the time merely a teenager of 10 or so years. In that moment, though I faced the white-browed cultivator in agony, I did not even blink, for I had no time to concern myself with such trivialities. The battle with the white-browed cultivator continued to rage, yet little Shangbing, who lay lifeless within my arms, remained entirely unaffected by the conflict. Relying on my massive golden sword, I shattered the white-browed cultivator's soul banner and began to lash out at him with relentless strikes. The white-browed cultivator was sent flying by my blow, his body hurtling into the thick clouds. Before he could recover his senses, I charged into the clouds, seemingly consumed by a demonic frenzy. Within the clouds, the white-browed cultivator was subjected to my continuous maddening assault. Before long, I had struck him in the air, cutting him down at least 300 times. At this moment, the Righteous Alliance fell into a deathly silence. None had expected that the young heavenly emperor would so thoroughly dominate the white-browed cultivator. If the battle continued, all were convinced that the white-browed cultivator would be the one to perish. Just then, someone looked toward Bai Ningbing and asked what would happen after the victory over the white-browed cultivator. Does Lady Empress Ningbing still remember? Wang Teng spoke up with a hint of dissatisfaction. Little Ningbing died within the reincarnation seal. She is certainly not the current Empress Ningbing. How could the Empress possibly know what happened afterward? At this point, the emotionless, indifferent voice of Bai Ningbing echoed through the air. In my childhood, I once encountered a great calamity, many details of which I no longer recall clearly. I only remember seeing my master after I regained consciousness. It was only after joining that sect that I attained the achievements I possess today. Many cultivators began to speculate, who was this young heavenly emperor? Was it possible that after slaying the white-browed cultivator, he stumbled upon some great fortuitous encounter that resurrected Empress Ningbing? Wang Teng felt that such a thing was absolutely impossible. Little Ningbing had no chance of being resurrected. With Empress Ningbing being so exceptionally brilliant, her master must have been a hidden expert of immense power. Although Bai Ningbing was enduring the agony within the reincarnation seal, the mere thought of her master stirred a flicker of warmth in her heart. My master has long since perished, yet his cultivation realm remains so profound that even I in my current state cannot fathom its depths. As these words left his lips, everyone present was struck with shock. Wang Teng also remarked with regret, "It is a pity that such a formidable expert as your master, if he had not already passed away, and had joined us in besieging the Heavenly Emperor, the Heavenly Emperor would surely have been unable to withstand us." To this, Bai Ningbing offered no reply. She realized that Wang Teng was only concerned with whether her master was still alive, believing that such knowledge would grant them a better chance of victory against her brother Heavenly Emperor. At the mere thought of this, Bai Ningbing's disdain for Wang Teng only deepened. Meanwhile, the white-browed cultivator retreated continuously. His body was covered in wounds, and his fingers trembled uncontrollably. The white-browed cultivator had unleashed countless Dharma treasures, yet every single one had been shattered by the youth before him. And all of this was caused by the massive golden sword in the youth's hand. The white-browed cultivator could no longer spare a thought for his ruined treasures. Now his only desire was to preserve his own life. Suddenly, the white-browed cultivator noticed that the youth had sheathed his sword and was using it to shield the little girl behind him. The eyes of the white-browed cultivator brightened instantly. He realized that the youth was protecting the girl, even though she had already lost all signs of life. With this, the white-browed cultivator erupted with a powerful pressure, intending to crush the girl's physical body directly. I, who had been fighting while shielding little Ningbing, was forced to shift from offense to defense. The white-browed cultivator attacked little Ningbing incessantly. This placed me in an increasingly passive position. Several cultivators in the alliance began to curse aloud. "You white-browed cultivator, you claim to be a grand master of your sect, yet you resort to such vicious tactics against a mortal shell. You have truly brought shame upon all who tread the path of immortality." Because the white-browed cultivator continuously targeted little Ningbing, I was forced to divert more of my strength to protect her. This left me unable to launch any offensives against the white-browed cultivator, making even my defense significantly more difficult. Suddenly, the white-browed cultivator seized the opportunity to unleash his divine ability, the Nine-Yin Blood Hand. A massive blood-red palm surged toward me. His target was not me, but once again little Ningbing. I was no longer fast enough to intercept it with my giant sword. I could only turn instinctively, using my own back to intercept the attack from the white-browed cultivator. Under the force of this blow, I vomited a large mouthful of blood, and my aura withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Subsequently, the white-browed cultivator unleashed a barrage of attacks using this very method, and I had no means to defend against them with my greatsword, left with no choice but to receive the strikes with my own body. Whether I could hold on to my life had become a complete uncertainty. At this moment, everyone in the alliance was filled with extreme indignation and grief. "Heavenly Emperor, put her down. It is not worth sacrificing your life for the dead. She has long since ceased to breathe. You must flee now." Although these words could not reach him within the reincarnation seal, the people still hoped that the young heavenly emperor would abandon Xiao Ningbing. Only then would he still have a chance to survive. Why must the young heavenly emperor go to such lengths? Perhaps he still holds on to the hope of keeping Xiao Ningbing's remains intact, clinging to a fragile sliver of hope for his sister's resurrection? Regardless of how monstrous the heavenly emperor's future sins may be, at this moment, standing before the reincarnation seal, his devotion to Xiao Ningbing truly leaves nothing to be criticized. Bai Ningbing's beautiful eyes betrayed a violent tremor. She suddenly recalled the words her brother had once spoken to the villagers. She is my younger sister. As long as I have a morsel of food, I will never let her go hungry. At this instant, Bai Ningbing deeply hoped that the Xiao Ningbing in the vision was her, yet simultaneously she hoped it was not. If it were truly her, she would not know how to face the man she had ultimately betrayed. In a few more days, you will be refined, heavenly emperor brother. Little brat, you are finished. Even at death's door, you still insist on protecting a useless, talentless girl. How could anyone be so foolish? Your middle dantian, I shall gladly accept it. The white-browed cultivator laughed maniacally. You are not permitted to speak of my sister in such a manner. Even in death, I will drag you down to the depths of hell. In that very moment, I lunged toward the white-browed cultivator like a madman. Furthermore, my primordial spirit began to manifest outside my body. The white-browed cultivator had initially paid no heed, but suddenly his expression shifted dramatically. And everyone within the heavenly emperor has gone mad. He is actually attempting to self-destruct his nascent soul. After this detonation, he'll be permanently barred from ever reaching the nascent soul realm again. The white-browed cultivator was struck with utter terror. He had never witnessed a purple palace nascent soul as formidable as this one. While the nascent soul of an ordinary cultivator is no larger than a fist, this youth's core appears as majestic as a grand palace. At that very moment, my own purple palace nascent soul erupted. The white-browed cultivator was shaken by the blast, instantly appearing to age several years. Most crucially, the soul of the white-browed cultivator suffered a devastating assault. He is now at constant risk of having his soul shattered entirely. Silence fell over the entire alliance. The tragedy of all that the heavenly emperor has done for his younger sister is truly profound. At this moment, Wang Ting speaks to the Empress Bai Ningbing, telling her that the young heavenly emperor has detonated his purple palace nascent soul. Do not continue to stand before the Samsara Seal. The Empress does not deserve to endure such equivalent suffering at this time. Faced with Wang Ting's entreaties, Bai Ningbing did not move an inch. She endured this agony which was difficult to even comprehend. Even she found it nearly unbearable. Yet Bai Ningbing observed that her elder brother within the Samsara Seal did not even furrow his brow. Ever since Bai Ningbing ascended to the great emperor realm, it had been many years since she last felt physical pain. But now, under the stimulation of this agony, fragments of memory began to crystallize within her mind. She remembered when she was a child she had been terrified of pain. It turned out that she had not ceased to fear pain upon becoming a great emperor. Rather, she had simply not felt it for far too long. In her youth, she had the protection of her brother. Her brother had never allowed her to suffer the slightest pain. Within the visual remnants of her memories, the experiences of the young heavenly emperor and little Ningbing in the village gradually aligned. Inside the Samsara Seal, the white-browed cultivator vomited a large mouthful of vital essence. Currently, the white-browed cultivator looks incredibly frail. His cultivation base has plummeted to the spirit transformation realm, yet he still possesses the strength to finish off the youth. The white-browed cultivator continues to roar, "The power of the double pupils shall belong to me." Having condensed two divine weapons, my eyes have long since begun to bleed a vast amount of golden vital essence. I attempted to harness the divine abilities of the venomous insects once more, yet I failed. My injuries were simply too severe. Watching the white-browed cultivator draw closer to Xiao Ningbing and myself, I steeled my resolve and made a final, desperate decision. At that moment, the Dantian Qi within my body expanded, as if a great seal had been shattered, surging frantically toward my dual pupil eye. The members of the Alliance cried out in shock, knowing that if the origin of his Dantian Qi were drained once more, he would truly be reduced to a complete cripple, incapable of cultivation for the rest of his life. Furthermore, the Dantian Qi of the young heavenly emperor was, without question, the most vast that any of them had ever witnessed. The Dantian of an ordinary cultivator is at most the size of a river, yet the Dantian of the young heavenly emperor was as boundless as the vast ocean. If a Qi of such magnitude were to be destroyed, it would be an unforgivable tragedy. The white-browed cultivator burned a massive amount of his essence blood, preparing to unleash a devastating strike. Alas, his attack could not be launched before it was completely submerged by the vast torrent of my surging Qi. Simultaneously, my right dual pupil eye erupted with a terrifying beam of light. The entire space began to tremble violently at that very moment. A ray of dark, ominous light pierced directly into the white-browed cultivator. In an instant, the body of the white-browed cultivator was severed in two. The white-browed cultivator was now truly dead, and every member of the Alliance was struck with absolute terror. Who would have thought the young heavenly emperor possessed the power to master such destructive dark radiance? Everyone marveled at the immense strength of the young heavenly emperor, yet as his nascent soul ruptured and golden essence blood continuously leaked from his pupils, all understood that the young heavenly emperor was already clinging to his final breaths. Had the heavenly emperor not been unwilling to abandon the lifeless Xiao Ningbing in his arms, he certainly would not have ended up in such a wretched state. Meanwhile, standing before the seal of reincarnation, Bai Ningbing's beautiful eyes were filled with absolute shock. She could not fathom how the young heavenly emperor had endured such agonizing torment. As she contemplated this, fragments of childhood memories gradually began to emerge within the depths of her mind. After I slew the white-browed cultivator, my body was completely hollowed out. At that moment, I fell straight toward the ground. With my last ounce of strength, I shielded Xiao Ningbing, positioning my own back to break the fall. Suddenly, Wang Teng offered his perspective, and the truth of the situation became clear. The Heavenly Emperor's right dual pupil eye possessed only the destructive dark radiance, lacking the restorative white light. This meant that in the future, he had forcibly extracted the dual pupils of the Empress Ningbing, solely to plunder her divine ability of restorative white light. As soon as Wang Teng finished speaking, the gathered cultivators all turned their gaze toward Bai Ningbing. They sensed that something was amiss, for some had previously witnessed Bai Ningbing utilizing a form of poison, yet it did not appear to be the white light resurrection. Bai Ningbing herself was even more acutely aware of this truth. She had never once utilized the white light resurrection. The power she had always commanded was the destructive black light. Suddenly, a daring conjecture took root in Bai Ningbing's mind. Her heart could not find peace. It was impossible. Such a thing could absolutely not be. At this moment, I was plummeting toward the ground, and from such a great height, falling would surely mean death. But just then, from the spatial rift that had been carved open by my destructive black light, a withered, aged hand suddenly reached out. That surge of power enveloped me, and I began to descend gently toward the earth. Wang Teng could not refrain from cold snorting, saying, "This person is the eternal sinner of the entire heaven-profound realm. How could she possibly intervene to save the young heavenly emperor at such a time?" The very next second, an elderly figure emerged from the spatial rift I had severed. It was an old woman with hair as white as snow, and upon seeing her, Bai Ningbing immediately cried out in shock, "Master, this woman was the very mentor who had taught Bai Ningbing." The alliance was thrown into an uproar once again. They had never anticipated that the old woman who intervened would be the master of Empress Ningbing. Wang Teng's expression turned incomparably unsightly, for he had just moments ago openly insulted this very woman. "Empress Ningbing, I had no intention of offending your honored master. My thanks to you, senior, for saving my life." I struggled to press my hands together and bow in gratitude to the old woman. The old woman smiled kindly. "It is nothing. Today I happen to be in another dimension, and I sensed that you had severed the spatial rift. It seems that you and I share a destiny." Suddenly, a thought struck me, and a final glimmer of hope surged within my heart. "I implore you, senior, please save my younger sister." Facing my entreaty, the old woman spoke with cold detachment. "You are already dead. A mortal body is of no use to me. Why should I save her?" In that moment, they had assumed it was the old woman from Vihoi who saved Xiao Ningbing, but the truth struck them with the force of a slap to the face. Bai Ningbing stood frozen in place, utterly stunned. So the only reason Master treated me so well was because of my double pupils? Bai Ningbing realized that in this world there is no such thing as kindness without motive. Yet the selfless, unconditional devotion the Heavenly Emperor showed Xiao Ningbing, what was one to make of that? Suddenly, Bai Ningbing felt his convictions waver, witnessing the old woman's refusal to save Xiao Ningbing. I felt a surge of desperation. "Senior, I was also on the verge of death when you saved me. Why will you not save my younger sister?" The old woman offered a gentle smile. "You are different. You are useful to me because you possess the double pupils. Young man, do not misunderstand. I do not intend to strip you of your double pupils. On the contrary, I intend to pass on everything I possess to you." Seeing my hesitation, the old woman continued to explain, "I am a remnant of the Heiwan sect. Although the sect was destroyed in the ancient era, its supreme inheritance still endures. For years, I have searched for a successor, believing none were suitable left in this world. I never imagined I would find you here. With your innate talent, you will surely restore the Heiwan sect to its former glory." Wang Teng, observing from the side, was green with envy. He could not comprehend why such opportunities never fell upon him. Seeing the young heavenly emperor appear deeply shaken, Wang Teng sneered in contempt. As I thought, the resolve of the young heavenly emperor is nothing more than this. In the end, he is merely a man hungry for power, desperate to become stronger. As Wang Teng uttered these words, he felt a sense of immense superiority, convinced that he and the heavenly emperor were no different. Within the reincarnation seal, the young heavenly emperor spoke. "If I accept this inheritance, will I be able to save my sister?" Wang Teng was left in disbelief upon hearing this. The young heavenly emperor was not driven by self-interest, but by the desire for the strength to save his sister. Confronted by my question, the old woman provided a direct answer. "It is impossible. Your sister is already dead. Even if a great emperor were standing here, they could not save her." Upon hearing this, my expression turned cold and indifferent. In that case, this power is meaningless to me. For the first time, the old woman struggled to maintain her composure. "You must think carefully. Even if this inheritance cannot save your sister, it can restore your cultivation. How could such an inheritance be considered useless?" I replied with absolute calm. "My Yuan Ying has been shattered, my Sifchi is exhausted, and I am already a broken, talentless man. I cannot bear the weight of this inheritance." The old woman smiled faintly. "You possess the double pupils. For this alone, you far surpass all others. With the innate divine ability of your double pupils, it will only be a matter of time before your injuries are restored." Suddenly, a thought struck me, and I asked if my younger sister possessed the double pupils, could she then accept the inheritance of the Heihuan sect? If she were to receive this inheritance, could she return from the dead? The old woman shook her head. Young man, she does not possess the double pupils. She is merely an ordinary mortal. From the very moment I acted, I saw through the inherent talents of you siblings with absolute clarity. Let go of this deceased sister of yours. Once you have grown strong, you may take in as many sisters like her as you wish. The old woman sought to dispel this notion from the youth's mind, urging him to focus entirely on inheriting the legacy of the Heiwan sect. Yet, after a long silence, I looked toward the old woman with a gaze of unwavering resolve. Then, if I am willing to pay any price, is it possible for her to receive the inheritance and be brought back to life? These words were like a thunderclap, echoing throughout the entire alliance. What did the Heavenly Emperor just say? He actually intended to gift his own eyes to his sister, so that little Ningbing could accept the inheritance and be resurrected from the abyss of death. One must understand that these are the double pupils. How could anyone bear to part with them? Wait, if he had succeeded back then the double pupils of the current Empress Ningbing. Suddenly, no one dared to continue speaking. The magnitude of this realization was too great, and Bai Ningbing, standing before the reincarnation seal, found her heart cast into deeper turmoil. Does it truly originate from elder brother? And I stabbed him in the back with my own hands. How am I to face him now? At this moment, Wang Teng stepped forward to diffuse the tension. Everyone, do not overthink this. The Emperor surely never succeeded. After all, little Ningbing had already perished. This is an undeniable fact. It was evident that the old woman had been stunned by my line of thinking. She pondered for a long time before speaking. Young man, I am impressed by your devotion in protecting your sister, but I must tell you this. Even if you were to transplant your double pupils into her, she would still remain a corpse. One who is already dead cannot accept the inheritance of the Heiwan sect. At this instant, a flicker of hope ignited in my eyes once more. Senior is correct. A dead person cannot accept the inheritance. However, Senior, you possess the power to save my sister first, do you not? The old woman grew somewhat impatient. What kind of jest is this? When have I ever claimed I could save her? I continued, laying out my own deductions. If Senior were truly unable to save her, you would not have needed to say so much. Senior, you are certainly capable of saving my younger sister. Senior, I only ask for an answer. Am I truly capable of saving her? I vaguely realized that this white-haired old woman seemed incapable of uttering a lie. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Not bad. Even the great emperors here could not save your sister, but I can. A collective gasp echoed throughout the alliance. They dared not imagine just how formidable this old woman truly was. Wang Teng seized the opportunity to interject. The master of Empress Ningbing is indeed a peerless expert. It is no wonder that even the Empress herself cannot discern her master's cultivation realm. For reasons unknown, Wang Teng felt that this old woman exuded a sense of void and mystery, harboring an underlying eccentricity. Suddenly, the old woman spoke again. However, I will not save her. You are the most suitable successor for our sect. I replied with absolute determination. That will not happen, Senior. You will certainly save her, because she shall inherit these twin pupil eyes of mine. Having said this, I made a motion as if to gouge out my own twin pupils. The old woman was visibly startled and alarmed. Young man, do not act recklessly. You must understand that even if I were to save her, by the time her soul returns, she would be nothing more than a soulless husk. Then if my sister receives the inheritance, would she be able to recover as she once was? The old woman seemed poised to speak, yet it appeared she was truly incapable of deceit. Finally, she slowly nodded. If that is the case, then it is enough. With that thought, I placed one hand upon my twin pupils and the other upon the eyes of little Ningbing. The old woman continued to dissuade me, but I no longer paid her any heed. In the next moment, I unleashed the divine ability of the twin pupils. Pupil transference art. Before the cycle of reincarnation, Bai Ningbing suddenly turned pale and stumbled back several steps. Is the twin pupils transference art truly this agonizing? This pain far exceeded the sensation of self-detonating my nascent soul and draining my sea of chi previously. Suddenly, someone could not help but ask, has that venerable one not had their twin pupils forcibly seized by the previous ruler before? Could it be that this is the first time they have experienced this kind of pain? Bai Shangbing shook her head. At that time, I was struck unconscious by the heavenly emperor. By the time I regained consciousness, the Middle East had already ceased to exist. Suddenly, Bai Yubing wondered if there might have been some hidden reason behind the events of the past. Otherwise, her brother could have easily acted while she was still conscious, allowing her to experience that agony firsthand. A long time had passed, and as the death-like pain subsided, I finally managed to endure it. When it was all over, my right eye had returned to that of an ordinary mortal. This was the eye that had previously belonged to Xiao Ningbing. Senior, please, save my younger sister. That single sentence alone exhausted almost every ounce of my remaining strength. The old woman let out a heavy sigh, eventually finding no other choice but to set up an isolation formation while releasing a surge of vast, shimmering soul power. Before long, I watched as Xiao Ningbing's soul drifted back from the void, guided by the old woman's soul summoning technique. The pale complexion of Xiao Ningbing quickly regained its color, and she offered a breathless expression of gratitude to the senior. Next, I asked that you immediately pass on the inheritance of the Heihuan sect to my sister. The old woman ceased her soul-guiding technique, stating the land of inheritance is not located here. Shortly, I will utilize a spatial rift to transport her to the site of the inheritance. The two of you, brother and sister, may not know when you will meet again. I let out a soft sound of acknowledgement, all the while gazing intently at Xiao Ningbing in my arms. Quickly, I turned my head away, unable to look at her any longer. Senior, please, take my sister to the inheritance ground of the Heihuan sect. The old woman waved her hand, and Bai Ningbing entered the spatial rift first. This journey of your sister's may take a long time. When she returns, how will she find you? I answered calmly, that will not be necessary. I do not believe I will live to see that day. The old woman's aged eyes could not help but flicker with emotion at that moment. It turned out that the young man had already accepted this as the final time he would ever see his sister in this life. After a moment of contemplation, the old woman raised her hand and struck a soul imprint into my body. When your sister completes her training and returns, if you are still alive, she will be able to find you using this mark. I thank you, Senior, I managed to say with great difficulty. I knew that this mark would likely serve no purpose, yet it gave me a glimmer of hope to persist and keep living. The old woman said with a hint of regret, it is a pity that my duty is only to seek a successor. The resources within the land of inheritance must be reserved for the successor to utilize. I do not have the authority to distribute them at my own discretion. Otherwise, I would have been able to use a few medicinal pills to treat your injuries. Yet, after a moment of silence, the old woman still channeled strands of soul power toward me. These remnants of soul power nourished my own spirit, if only slightly. I felt that my condition had improved significantly compared to being a flickering flame in the wind. At the very least, I could now hold on to my life. Under my suspicious gaze, the old woman smiled and said, although I cannot use the resources of the Heihuan sect for you, I can use our own strength to lend you a hand. But as you can see, I died long ago and now exist only as a soul entity. It is precisely because of this that I am able to summon your sister's wandering soul back. However, in my current state, I can only nourish your soul. I am unable to assist you any further than this. What? The master of the Ningbing Empress is actually nothing more than a soul entity. This news immediately sent the alliance into an uproar. Bai Ningbing finally found clarity for a long-standing doubt in her heart. So her master was merely a soul entity, which explains why she always felt their presence was ethereal and vague. So that was it. Upon hearing the old woman's words, I did not show much emotion. Wang Teng, however, became impatient. He refused to believe that the judgment of the youth known as the Heavenly Emperor could so far surpass his own. To him, this was even more unbearable than being killed. The Heihuan sect requires every inheritor to reveal everything regarding their circumstances. That is why I cannot lie. Compared to your sister, a youth like you has far exceeded the standards. Had I not been the soul of the Heihuan sect, I would certainly not have possessed the ability to cast the soul-guiding technique. And if you had not preserved her physical body intact, her soul would have had nowhere to reside. Perhaps it is truly because this girl shares a fated connection with the Heihuan sect. Thank you, Senior. You are my sister's great benefactor. I struggled once more to bow respectfully to the old woman, but Senior, you have yet to explain why you wish to save me. I have lost my eyes, my cultivation is destroyed, my dantian is empty, and I am nothing but a useless cripple. Senior, why do you still wish to help me? Suddenly, the old woman smiled faintly. Who told you that you were a useless person? Young man, I can see boundless potential within you. If you can only manage to survive, your future achievements will likely exceed even my wildest imagination. By then, given the bond you share with your sister, you will undoubtedly be her protector. This could be seen as indirectly safeguarding the successor of the Heihuan sect, so how could it be considered useless? Young man, I have a premonition. If you can survive, only then will your sister be able to grow up safe and sound. Her true reliance is not the legacy of the Heihuan technique, but you yourself. Everyone in the alliance admires the old woman's foresight, for her predictions have proven to be unfailingly accurate. The greatest assurance for the Ice Empress throughout her journey was, in fact, her brother, the Heavenly Emperor, and certainly not merely her inherited legacy. One must realize that Bai Ningbing possessed both the heavy eyes and an unrivaled beauty. While her cultivation level was still low, how could she avoid being targeted by others? With a brother who is the invincible Heavenly Emperor, no one would dare harbor ill intentions toward Bai Ningbing again. Had it not been for the deterrent presence of her Heavenly Emperor brother, Bai Ningbing might have long since perished. Now, owing so much to her brother, Bai Ningbing is completely at a loss as to how she could ever repay him. Now I finally understand why the Senior chose to save me. Thank you, Senior. I will certainly keep this debt of gratitude in my heart. The old woman smiled faintly. For this body of mine, holding on for another few hundred years makes no difference. It is better to use this remaining time to gamble on a youth with limitless potential such as yourself. Everyone in the alliance internally agreed with the old woman's actions, because everything she said and did was entirely correct. The great kindness of this Senior I will surely repay. If there is anything I can do to assist, I will spare no effort. The old woman smiled. If that is the case, I do have a request I would like to make. If in the days to come you encounter the bloodline successors of my sect, please extend them a helping hand. I nodded solemnly. I understand your intentions. If one day I should meet those of your lineage, I will certainly ensure their safety. Upon hearing my words, the old woman's expression finally relaxed. Good, the hour grows late. I must take your sister now. Young man, you will not disappoint me, will you? Just as the old woman was about. Senior, I do not know if you have ever heard of the faction known as the Yamahal. The old woman pondered carefully, yet she still shook her head. Despite her vast knowledge, even she was unaware of what kind of force the Yamahal represented. Before departing, the old woman turned back to ask me one final question. Young man, you have sacrificed yourself to such an extent for your younger sister. If the roles were reversed, would she treat you in the same manner? These words struck Bai Ningbing, standing within the alliance, as if she had been hit by a bolt of lightning. To her, this was nothing short of an interrogation of her very soul. She was on the verge of collapse. Hearing the old woman's words, I offered a faint, relieved smile. She would do it. She would certainly do it. However, I hope that she will never have to endure such tribulations. My words caused Bai Ningbing, standing before the reincarnation seal, to completely shatter her internal defenses. Tears could no longer be contained, sliding down her beautiful eyes. I have not. I have never treated you that way. When have I ever treated you with such devotion? Bai Ningbing knew all too well that not only had she failed to treat her brother with absolute sincerity, but she had also struck him down with cruel betrayal. Within the Heavenly Emperor's domain, there were countless mechanisms and secrets. My brother held nothing back. He shared everything with me without reservation. Yet Bai Ningbing had directly betrayed her brother, leading others to draw their blades and point them straight at him. I betrayed him. I treated him in such a wretched manner. Young man, if we are fated to meet again, I hope your younger sister will not disappoint you. As I performed a final bow to the old woman, she vanished into the void, taking Xiao Shangbing with her. Using the last remnants of her power, she teleported me away as well, leaving me drifting through the air, unaware of my destination. When the barrier the old woman had erected dissolved, several powerful cultivators rushed in to investigate, only to find nothing. They remained entirely ignorant of what had just transpired. Just as the young Heavenly Emperor was sent adrift, Bai Ningbing, standing before the reincarnation seal, found her eyes brimming with tears. Suddenly, she erupted with the power of a great emperor, her target being none other than the reincarnation seal itself. She intended to destroy the reincarnation seal to save her brother. At that very moment, a surge of sharp sword intent rose up to stop Bai Ningbing. I realized it long ago. It is exactly as I suspected. You intend to rescue your brother, and the one taking action is none other than the Sword God Empress. Great Emperor Wangtung hurried forward to intercept Empress Bing, declaring that the Heavenly Emperor had committed sins that reached the heavens and could not be released. Bai Shangbing's expression remained entirely unmoved. He is my brother. I must save him. Perhaps my brother has failed the world, but he has never failed me. No matter what the cost, I will rescue him. Once we have left this place, I will persuade him to abdicate the throne of the Heavenly Emperor. I will go into seclusion with him, and we shall never concern ourselves with worldly affairs again. When that day comes, whoever wishes to rule this world may do so. It will have nothing to do with us. Fine words, indeed, claiming your brother may have failed the world, but not you. Then how are we to account for the slaughter of my Sword God clan at the hands of your brother? At this moment, the Sword God Empress's sword intent turned even more frigid, and Wangtung anxiously urged her again, think carefully. You must remember that it was your brother who tore the double pupils from you. He has wronged you as well. Bai Shangbing replied with unwavering conviction, my double pupils were given to me by my brother in the first place. It is only natural that he would take them back. As she spoke, an astral disc radiating a terrifying aura manifested above Bai Shangbing's head. Within the disc, it seemed as though an entire galaxy was contained, causing the many cultivators present to cry out in shock. Bai Shangbing then sacrificed the Heihuan disc. This was her true natal artifact. In years past, it was with this very Heihuan disc that she had made her name. Empress Ningbing, you must think this through. It is truly not worth it for the sake of a heavenly emperor who has committed such heinous crimes. He may have treated you well when you were young, but he has changed. Indeed, Empress, he is no longer the same child he once was. Everyone vied to persuade the Empress to change her mind, but their words only served to make Bai Shangbing more resolute. This life of mine was bestowed upon me by my brother. If I must die today to save him, then so be it. Just then, the Sword God Empress also produced her own natal artifact, causing Wangtung to panic. He had not expected the Empress to turn against them so decisively. If two empresses were to wage war within the alliance, this place would be reduced to ruins in the blink of an eye. Sister Ningbing, stop this. You have no chance of victory. The one who stepped forward at this moment was none other than the Empress consort of the Heavenly Emperor Liu Qingcheng. The other 7 empresses did not move, knowing that the combined strength of the Sword God Empress and the Empress consort was more than sufficient. Disdaining the idea of ganging up on her, they instead worked together to stabilize the space, fearing that otherwise, the surroundings would surely be annihilated. Suddenly, a thought crossed Wangtung's mind. Perhaps he could use this opportunity to eliminate Empress Ningbing once and for all. But the moment the thought surfaced, Wangtung felt as though he were being stared down by an ancient primordial beast. Wangtung was struck with profound terror. Could this be the supreme divine ability executed by the Heavenly Emperor trapped within the seal of reincarnation? Perhaps the Heavenly Emperor had cast a forbidden protective technique upon the Ice Empress, one that would automatically activate to safeguard her life whenever she was in danger. The more Wangtung pondered, the more plausible this possibility seemed, and he felt fortunate that he had not recklessly moved against Bai Ningbing. Had he done so, the consequences would have been unfathomable. However, Wangtung had no intention of allowing the 3 of them to continue their battle. Thus, he suddenly deployed a Dharma treasure, the heaven-suppressing tower. Bai Ningbing was exerting all her might to confront the Sword Goddess Empress and Liu Qingcheng. She never expected that Wangtung, a great emperor, would stoop to such despicable tactics. Caught off guard by the sneak attack, she was unable to defend herself and was directly imprisoned within the heaven-suppressing tower. The cultivators cried out in shock, has the heaven-suppressing tower not been lost for 10,000 years? With the heaven-suppressing tower here, the Ningbing Empress can be bound for a significant amount of time. Wangtung, what do you think you are doing? At this moment, the sword goddess and Lu Qingcheng looked toward Wang Teng in unison. Both women expressed open contempt for Wang Teng's cowardly sneak attack. Wang Teng immediately assumed an air of righteousness and declared, "Two empresses, I had no other choice. Rest assured, the heaven-suppressing tower will not harm the Ningbing Empress. Once this matter is concluded, I shall personally offer my apologies to the Ningbing Empress." Could the crowd of cultivators truly be so easily deceived by Wang Teng? Indeed, Emperor Wang is acting out of concern for the world. Everything is being done to resolve the great calamity that is the Heavenly Emperor. Great Emperor Wang truly possesses a heart of compassion for all living beings in the world. The sword goddess gazed at Wang Teng with eyes filled with utter disdain. She had partially deduced Wang Teng's true intentions. This was because she too had just felt the sensation of being locked onto by a terrifying primordial power. Inside the heaven-suppressing tower, Ningbing utilized the convergence disc, launching continuous attacks against the interior of the tower in an attempt to shatter it and break free. Wang Teng reassured everyone not to worry, claiming that the heaven-suppressing tower is a divine defensive artifact, and that even the Ningbing Empress could not break through it immediately. If the Sword Goddess Empress were to attempt to destroy the heaven-suppressing tower, the situation might become unpredictable. The Sword Goddess stood tall with her blade on her back, reflecting that a sword is the edge of the heart, which can be used to kill, yet also to protect. My sword spirit heart has never existed solely for the purpose of attack. Yet, after the Sword Goddess spoke these words, she was struck with a sense of bewilderment, unable to understand why her mind suddenly throbbed with pain. It was as if she had heard those very words somewhere before. Suddenly, Wang Teng let out a cry of alarm. Ningbing Empress, has she lost her mind? It was evident that Bai Ningbing, trapped within the tower, was burning her own life essence to strike. At this moment, the power of the complete version was even more radiant than before. Although Wang Teng was anxious, he explained, "Rest assured, everyone. Even so, the Empress of Frozen Ice will not be able to escape in a short time. Even if the Empress of Frozen Ice were to break free, as long as the Heavenly Emperor has not been completely refined, his strength will be weakened to a level below that of a great emperor. At that point, the situation will no longer be of concern." Wang Teng's words caused everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. In the eyes of the crowd, the current situation was highly favorable. From here on, they only needed to wait for the Heavenly Emperor to be fully refined. Meanwhile, trapped within the Reincarnation Seal, I witnessed everything unfolding outside. Seeing Bai Ningbing desperately risking her life to save me, my heart felt heavy. I could not shake the feeling that the memories of my childhood were not merely fabrications of my own making. They felt like absolute truth, as if these events had truly transpired in my life. However, I had no time to dwell on this. Relying solely on Bai Ningbing would certainly not be enough to rescue me. I needed to incite more of the traitorous great emperors to act. Thus my gaze settled upon the sword goddess. Her sword soul is renowned for possessing the supreme power of destruction. It must be you, sword goddess empress. I immediately gathered the fragmented memories related to the sword goddess empress, and after careful deliberation I projected them onto the reincarnation seal, then proceeded to alter them further. For some reason, I felt that the scenes I was fabricating appeared incredibly authentic, as if they were genuine recollections of the past. Suddenly someone cried out in shock, "Look quickly, images are appearing within the reincarnation seal once more." The visions of the past within the reincarnation seal had experienced a brief interruption. Everyone assumed it was because the recent battle between the three empresses had affected the reincarnation seal. Now that their conflict had ceased, the scenes of the past were once again manifesting within the seal. Within the reincarnation seal, at the site where my battle against the white-browed cultivator had just taken place, dozens of high-level cultivators had appeared. Yet they had gained nothing. Little Ningbing had long since been taken away by the old woman, and I had been teleported by her to a place infinitely far away. I do not know how much time passed before I finally fell from the sky to the ground. The moment I hit the earth, a gentle force of soul energy cushioned my descent, and at last I landed safely. I knew this was the final measure taken by the old woman. I struggled to stand and looked around. The only sensation I could feel was the biting cold. This place was buried under ice and snow, chillingly desolate. If my nascent soul and Dantian were whole, I naturally would not fear the cold. But I am currently little more than a cripple, yet I do not blame the old woman for my plight. Before my battle with the white-browed Taoist, I had already moved far away from the village. In the end, if the old woman had not utilized a random teleportation technique, falling into the hands of a great cultivator would have resulted in an even more miserable fate. From here on, I must rely solely on myself. I began to trudge through the snow, one agonizing step at a time. For now, I must first ascertain where I am. This is a small, desolate town with few souls passing through. Even though my thin garments are failing to shield me from the biting frost, the few passers-by remain indifferent, choosing to avoid me entirely. My body has long since reached its absolute limit, and the blinding blizzard further clouds my judgment. At last, my physical strength finally fails me, and I collapse directly into the deep, driving snow. Within the Alliance of the Mad, the crowd begins to stir with speculation. The physical condition of the Heavenly Emperor is truly dire. He can currently be seen as nothing more than an ordinary man. Even if someone discovers him, they would instinctively turn and walk away. Just like that, I lay unconscious in the snow for a full day and night. Throughout that entire time, not a single person came to my aid. But the silver lining is that the snow has finally ceased. At this moment, a young girl wearing a woolen hat exhales warm breath onto her small freezing hands to keep them warm. As she happens to pass by, she notices the young man collapsed upon the ground. She hesitates for a moment, yet still bends down, gently shaking the young man's body. Hey, wake up. Seeing this, Wang lets out a cold snort of disdain. If this girl saves the Heavenly Emperor, she will become a sinner of the ages. The girl shakes the young man a few more times and discovers he is already frozen stiff. Furthermore, she seems to realize that he is a cultivator. After a moment of hesitation, she stands up, intending to leave. Li Jimei warns her not to meddle in unnecessary affairs, but the girl's desire to walk away is not firm. Every 2 steps she takes, she turns back to look. It is clear that she possesses a kind heart. Suddenly, the girl hears a soft, delirious murmur from the young man. Father? Mother? Inside the heaven-suppressing pagoda of the Alliance, Bai Ningbing hears her brother's voice. Even while teetering on the brink of death, he is still worried about her. This realization drives her attacks to become even more frantic. She is desperate to break free and save her brother. Upon hearing the youth's faint murmurs, the young woman finally halted her steps. Anyone who yearns for their loved ones in such a state could surely not be a wicked person. In the end, the young woman hoisted the youth onto her back and began the arduous trek toward her dwelling. After a long while, the young woman finally arrived at her home with the youth still on her back. At this moment, the cultivators of the Alliance felt immense surprise. They had initially sensed a faint, ethereal essence emanating from her, leading them to believe she was a cultivator. Yet her dwelling was remarkably humble, perhaps even bordering on dilapidated. Just as everyone was convinced she would immediately assist the frozen Heavenly Emperor, she did not attempt to kindle a fire. Instead, she retrieved a handful of snow from the courtyard and began to rub it repeatedly against the youth's arms. The members of the Alliance were baffled by this action. It was evident the Heavenly Emperor was frozen solid. Why not use fire to melt the ice, and why use snow to rub him instead? At that moment, the cold, clear voice of the Sword Empress resonated. One whose entire body is frozen cannot be exposed to direct fire or scalding water. Using fire would cause his blood vessels to rupture. One must use snow to gradually restore his circulation. Only then did everyone suddenly realize the truth. So that was the case. The crowd then turned to the Sword Empress, showering her with sycophantic praise. However, the Sword Empress merely responded indifferently. I simply grew up in this region of extreme cold, so I possess some knowledge regarding such matters, nothing more. As soon as the Sword Empress finished speaking, a peculiar sensation arose within her. She felt a vague sense of familiarity as she looked at the young woman. After the young woman had rubbed the youth with snow for a considerable time, although she had achieved a certain degree of restored blood circulation, it remained a superficial remedy rather than a cure for the root cause. If this were to continue, the youth's heart would surely cease to beat entirely. The young woman hesitated for a moment, her cheeks flushing a faint, involuntary shade of red. She gently loosened the youth's collar, intending to apply the snow directly to his chest, as that would be the most effective method. This is the first time I have done such a thing for a man. You must not die, no matter what. The young woman muttered to herself, but as she opened the upper layer of the youth's garments, she froze in place, stunned. The youth's chest was covered in a tangled web of terrifying scars. Some were ancient wounds, while the most terrifying sight was at his dantian, where it seemed to have been hollowed out, leaving behind only a void of nothingness, his breath flickering like a candle in the wind. She had never seen anyone suffer such grievous wounds and yet remain alive. Subconsciously, she reached out to gently touch the deepest injury. The moment her fingertips made contact, the youth began to cough violently, blood spilling from his lips and staining the white hem of her robes. The young girl was startled and panicked, yet she did not retreat. With all her might, she dragged the youth onto the earthen bed and rushed out into the courtyard to forage for medicinal herbs. She recalled her grandfather saying that the snow lotus, which grows in the extreme cold, could preserve a life. Meanwhile, outside the reincarnation seal, everyone was staring intensely at the images projected within. Wang Tang spoke with a chilling smile. The Heavenly Emperor's fate had not yet ended, only to be saved by a naive fool. But the Sword God Empress suddenly stepped forward, her gaze locked onto the face of the young girl. Although the girl wore a snow hat and her features were still youthful, those eyes, that expression, and the instinctive habit of biting her lip began to overlap with a fading silhouette in her memories. Her breathing grew shallow as fragmented memories flashed through her mind. Heavy snow covering the ground, and a youth carrying her through the bitter cold. She leaned on his shoulder, her voice weak. "Big brother, I am cold." The youth wrapped her tightly, his voice resolute. "Hold on to me firmly. We will surely survive this." At that very moment, the scenes within the reincarnation seal shifted, time appearing to accelerate. Day after day, the girl climbed the mountains to gather herbs, cleaned the youth's wounds, and fed him the decoction made from the snow lotus. The youth, the Heavenly Emperor, drifted between consciousness and delirium. Every time he awoke, his first words were always, "My little sister, where is she?" The girl whispered comfortingly, "You will recover soon. Once you are well, I will help you find your sister." The youth looked at her, his eyes clouded with confusion, and suddenly grasped her hand. "Ningbing, is it you?" The girl's face flushed crimson, and she hurriedly pulled her hand away. "My name is Ashu." The youth remained silent for a long time before softly saying, "Thank you." As the months passed, the youth's external wounds gradually scarred over, but his dantian remained hollow, his vitality frail. He tried repeatedly to circulate his cultivation technique, yet he could not condense even a single strand of spiritual energy. Each attempt left him coughing up blood. Ashu, unable to bear the sight, reached out to restrain his hand. Stop trying, your dantian is already broken. The gaze of the young heavenly emperor darkened, yet it held no trace of despair. He looked out the window at the vast, snow-covered plains and suddenly asked, "Is there a sword here?" Shua was stunned. "We only have a wood-chopping knife here, but a knife will suffice." A Shu retrieved a rusted knife. The young heavenly emperor took it in his hand. Though he was weak, his grip on the blade was as steady as a monolith. He stepped into the courtyard and slowly swung the blade toward the snowstorm. There was no spiritual energy, no sword intent, only the most primitive of strikes. But at the very moment the strike was unleashed, the sword empress beyond the Samsara Seal trembled violently. She realized that this strike was the opening stance of the Frozen Forest, the introductory sword manual of the Sword God clan. Only those who have perceived the essence of wind and snow in the extreme north for over a decade could possibly manifest such pure coldness. The opening stance of the Frozen Forest. In the vision, the young heavenly emperor spent every day swinging his blade from dawn until the snow piled high upon his body. He seemed never to know exhaustion. Even when coughing up blood, even when he collapsed, he would always rise to continue. Zhu stood to the side, her expression shifting from worry to silence, until finally her eyes began to redden. She quietly prepared an extra portion of porridge, placing every scrap of meat she had into his bowl. One night the youth suddenly developed a high fever, his body burning, his mouth muttering deliriously. Ningbing, run! The truth behind the Yamahal, I must uncover the truth. Ashu used melted snow to bathe him and reduce his fever, keeping watch by his side for the entire night. As dawn broke, the young heavenly emperor finally cooled, but he fell into an even deeper state of unconsciousness. Ashu gritted her teeth and hoisted the youth onto her back, stumbling through the deep snow toward the heart of the mountains. She recalled her grandfather saying that atop the snowy peak lay a millennium ice soul capable of mending meridians and healing wounds, but it was guarded by a snow leopard. For a mortal to approach it was certain death. She was no mere mortal, she was of the displaced bloodline of the Sword God clan. Though she herself did not know it, beyond the Samsara Seal, the Sword Empress's fingertips dug deep into her palms. She had finally remembered everything. She had been born in the southern territory, and her clan had sent her to the northern snow plains to forge her sword heart. It was then that she had saved the young heavenly emperor. Later, when she returned to her clan in the south, she found they had fallen into catastrophe. As she was pursued by her enemies, she fled once again to the northern snow plains, where a youth carried her through the blizzard, hiding her in a cave while he lured the enemies away. It was this tragic encounter that caused the Sword Empress to lose her past memories. She had always believed it to be nothing more than a dream. It was but a hallucination before death. As it turned out, that young youth was none other than him. Within the vision, a Shu scaled the snowy peak where a thousand-year ice soul hovered inside an ice cave, emitting a mystical blue light. A three-eyed snow demon lunged from the shadows, its razor-sharp claws aimed directly at Ashu's throat. Though Ashu possessed no martial arts, she instinctively dodged and pulled a jade pendant from her robe. It was an object she had worn since childhood, never knowing its true purpose. The moment the jade pendant touched the snow demon, a blinding sword light erupted from it. With a blood-curdling shriek, the snow demon was sliced in half by the radiant sword light. Ashu stood stunned, looking down at the jade pendant. Upon its surface, two small words appeared, Sword Heart. Having no time for thought, she hurriedly seized the ice soul and descended the mountain. She placed the ice soul upon the youth's dantian. As the blue light seeped into his body, my pale face gradually regained a hint of color. When I opened my eyes, I saw Ashua's lips turn purple from the cold and the frostbite scarring her hands from the ice soul. My heart filled with guilt, I asked in a hoarse voice, "Why must you take such risks for my sake?" Ashu smiled softly. "You promised me that you would find your younger sister. You cannot be late." I remained silent for a long time before reaching out to gently wipe the melted snow from her face. "Once I recover, I shall teach you the way of the sword." Ashu's eyes lit up. Truly? Time passed swiftly and 3 years went by. I was still unable to condense spiritual ki. Yet my blade techniques grew increasingly sharp. I could even etch the traces of sword intent upon the snow. Ashu made rapid progress studying the blade under me, unaware that she was learning the very ultimate technique she herself would one day create, the unique cold heaven sword intent of the Sword God clan. One day, a group of black-clad cultivators stormed the small town, compasses in hand, heading straight for Ashua's home. The leader let out a cold laugh. As expected, the remnants of the Sword God clan are hiding here. Ashu was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. I pulled her behind me, my grip tightening on my wood-chopping blade. The black-clad cultivator sneered. "A talentless trash with no cultivation base dares to stand in our way?" The young heavenly emperor uttered not a single word. With a single swing of his blade, his head fell to the ground, leaving the remaining cultivators in utter terror. They immediately joined forces and charged at him. The young heavenly emperor's blade moved like a seamless web. With every step, he placed his feet perfectly upon the sinking snow. Utilizing the counterforce, he used his mortal body to slaughter 7 Foundation Establishment cultivators in succession. I turned back to look at Aju and said, "Leave now, they will not let this go." Aju shook her head. "I am not leaving. Wherever you go, I shall follow." The young heavenly emperor smiled bitterly, but Ashu spoke with unwavering resolve. "You saved me. Now it is my turn to save you." She pulled the young heavenly emperor toward the depths of the snow-covered mountains. Deep within lay an ancient teleportation formation. It was the place her grandfather had whispered of before he passed away. He said that if disaster ever struck, she could activate this formation. However, the destination remained unknown. Life and death would be left to fate. As they stepped into the formation, a brilliant light consumed their forms. Outside the Samsara Seal, the sword goddess wept, her face soaked in tears. She had finally remembered. The girl named A Shu was her younger self, and the young Heavenly Emperor was the one who carried her through the snowstorm. He had taught her the sword and slaughtered the pursuers to keep her alive. Trembling as she looked toward the Samsara Seal, her voice choked with emotion. "So it was you." Wang Teng sensed that the situation was turning precarious and shouted, "Sword Goddess, do not be deceived by these illusions. Those are false memories fabricated by the Samsara Seal." The Sword Goddess whipped her head around, her eyes flashing with a cold, blade-like intensity. "Fabricated? Then where did this sword scar on my chest come from? Why am I able to wield the cold heaven sword intent? Why does my heart ache with such intensity every time I see him?" She reached out and tore her robe, revealing an old, distinct sword scar etched across her left chest. It was the wound left by those who hunted her all those years ago. She should have perished, but someone had used their sword key to seal her heart veins and preserve her life. She had always wondered who her savior was. Now she finally knew. Wang Teng attempted to speak again, but the sword goddess had already drawn her blade, each strike aimed directly at the heaven-suppressing tower. Wang Teng's face turned deathly pale. "Sword goddess, do you intend to commit treason?" "That is correct." The sword goddess emphasized every word. "If all of this is true, I owe him far more than just this life of mine." Empress Lu Qingcheng stepped forward in a flash to intercept the Sword Empress. "Sister, calm yourself. Calm down." The Sword Empress offered a bitter smile. "If he truly is that person, then for me to stand here alongside everyone else and besiege him, how is that any different from being ungrateful and treacherous?" Lu Qingcheng frowned, gazing toward the Seal of Reincarnation. The visions continued to unfold. The teleportation array had transported the youth and Aishu to an ancient secret realm. The spiritual energy here was exhausted and savage beasts roamed freely. The young Heavenly Emperor was still unable to cultivate, yet relying on the keen observation remaining from his pupil techniques and a blade style honed thousands of times, he carved a path of blood through the secret realm to survive. During one battle, to save the young Heavenly Emperor, A Shu was pierced through the shoulder by a beast's poisonous claw, the virulent toxin reaching her heart, leaving her at death's door. Carrying her on his back, the young Heavenly Emperor trekked thousands of miles until he found a sacred herb. Yet it was guarded by a beast in the Golden Core realm. With his mortal body, the young Heavenly Emperor fought a bloody battle against the beast for 3 days, finally decapitating it with a single strike, though he himself was left critically wounded. I fed the sacred herb to Eizhu, then collapsed into a pool of blood, my breath slowly fading away. Eizhu awakened and threw herself to his side, weeping and begging for him to hold on. "Do not die. You promised you would teach me to master all the sword techniques." The young Heavenly Emperor struggled to open his eyes, reaching out to wipe away her tears. "I apologize. I have broken my word." Eizhu frantically channeled her spiritual energy into him, but her cultivation was too low. The energy entering his body was like a stone sinking into the ocean, and she embraced the young Heavenly Emperor in utter despair. "I do not want this. If you die, I do not want to live." The young Heavenly Emperor suddenly coughed up a mouthful of black blood, which unexpectedly contained flickering specks of light. It was the soul energy left behind in his soul by the old female master. Triggered by the boundary between life and death, it was ignited by the will to survive, merging with the medicinal essence of the sacred herb to condense a new vortex of energy within his dantian. The young Heavenly Emperor survived, though he remained unable to cultivate. However, that vortex allowed him to barely manipulate a sliver of soul power. Relying on this fragment of soul power, he carved countless arrays throughout the secret realm, drawing down heavenly lightning and earthly fire to temper his own body. 3 years followed by another 3, and his body gradually grew powerful. Though he possessed no cultivation base, a single strike from his fist could shatter mountains. Ashu's cultivation level gradually climbed. With her sword intent reaching the minor completion stage, the two stood side by side, braving secret realms, slaughtering demonic beasts, and searching for ancient ruins, their bond deepening with every passing day. One day, they discovered the remnants of an ancient sword-wielding clan. Within the dwelling sat an ancient sword, its blade covered in patches of rust. Beside the sword, a line of text was carved, "Sword of the heart, void of wind. The great Tao is found in simplicity." As Aishu reached out to touch the blade, it suddenly erupted in light, and countless wisps of sword chi flooded into her body, causing her to lose consciousness immediately. The young Heavenly Emperor kept watch over her for 7 days and 7 nights. On the 7th day, Aju awoke, her eyes gleaming with a chilling sword intent. Her cultivation had surged, breaking through to the nascent soul realm. She looked at the young man with a complex expression. "This sword has acknowledged me as its master. It says I am the final bloodline of the Sword God clan." The young Heavenly Emperor nodded calmly. "It is time for you to return." Aju seized his hand. "Come with me." The young Heavenly Emperor shook his head. "I still have tasks left unfinished." "What tasks?" "To take revenge and to find my younger sister." "To destroy the Yamahal," Aishio said, gritting her teeth. "I can assist you. Your path lies with the Sword God clan. Do not let me become a shackle upon your journey." Aju embraced him tightly from behind, her voice choked with emotion. "But I cannot bear to part with you." The young Heavenly Emperor's body stiffened slightly before he gently clasped Aishui's hands. "I must go." He left Aishu alone within the sword tomb. She gripped the ancient blade, tears streaming down her face like rain. Outside the reincarnation seal, the sword god Empress was weeping uncontrollably. She finally understood why she felt such a haunting familiarity with every blade of grass and tree within the Heavenly Emperor's palace. Why she avoided certain mechanisms by instinct. Why in the depths of her dreams at midnight she always saw a fading figure vanishing into the wind and snow. She raised her hand and the heart sword let out a clear, resonating chime. A pillar of sword chi pierced the heavens, slashing directly at the heaven-suppressing tower. Yet not one of the 7 remaining empresses moved to strike. They gazed upon the images within the reincarnation seal with complex expressions, their eyes betraying deep inner turmoil. Empress Lu Qingcheng let out a heavy sigh and took a step back. I shall take no further part in this battle. One by one, the other empresses also retreated into the distance. They were consumed by memories of their pasts shared with the Heavenly Emperor. What they had once dismissed as mere feigned tenderness, now in this moment revealed its true form piece by piece within the reincarnation seal. The Sword God Empress unleashed a single devastating sword strike. The heaven-suppressing pagoda trembled violently, its structure beginning to fracture. Bai Ningbing surged forth from within the crumbling tower, as a brilliant radiance erupted from the Heiwan plate. She stood side by side with the Sword God Empress. Do you all intend to commit treason? Wang Ting's face twisted into a mask of ferocity. Bai Ningbing fixed a frigid gaze upon him. It is you who harbors treason. You are the true mastermind behind the remnants of the Yama Hall. Wang Ting's pupils contracted as he stammered, unable to form a coherent defense. The Sword God Empress pointed her blade directly at Wang Ting. It was you who dispatched those who hunted us down years ago, solely to prevent the Sword God clan from allying with the Heavenly Emperor, and to hinder your own consolidation of power over the Righteous Alliance. No sooner had these words fallen than Bai Ningbing and the Sword God Empress joined forces to strike the reincarnation seal with a singular crushing blow. Yet the reincarnation seal merely trembled, barely shifted by their combined might. Standing nearby, Wang Ting laughed with manic arrogance. And what if it was me? 2 of the 9 emperors are already gone, the remaining 7 are severely wounded, and the Heavenly Emperor within the reincarnation seal is nearing his end. On what grounds do you think you can challenge me? Behind him, dozens of elite cultivators of the Righteous Alliance step forward in unison, their killing intent surging like a tempest. At that very moment, the reincarnation seal violently shuddered, the images within shattered, and a figure slowly stepped out from the void. His white robes were stained with blood, and his dark hair flowed wildly, yet his eyes shone with the brilliance of stars. His left eye was a dual pupil, his right an ordinary one, yet both held a profound weariness that seemed to pierce through the veil of eternity. He looked toward Bai Ningbing and smiled. Little sister, I have returned. He then turned his gaze to the Sword God Empress. Shu, you have waited long. Finally, he turned his gaze toward Wang Ting, his eyes turning chillingly cold. Current Hall Master of the Yanlu Hall, your farce ends here. Wang Ting was struck with terror. How could you have possibly escaped? The immortal emperor raised his hand and a phantom of the reincarnation seal manifested in his palm. The reincarnation seal refines memories, but I have long since refined those memories into my true form. Within the seal I am the past, outside the seal I am the present. He took a single step forward, his aura surging continuously, rising from a mere mortal straight to the foundation establishment stage. Golden core, nascent soul, spirit severing, Tao integration, tribulation transcendence, great perfection, true immortal, immortal monarch, quasi-emperor, immortal emperor. His power finally halted at the peak of the great emperor realm. The overwhelming pressure blanketed the heavens and the earth, forcing all living beings to prostrate themselves. Wang Teng's face turned deathly pale and he spun around, desperate to flee. The Heavenly Emperor pointed a single finger and the void shattered. Wang Teng let out a miserable shriek as his physical body was obliterated. His soul was seized and the Heavenly Emperor crushed it with a cold grip. From within he extracted a pitch-black curse mark. It was the very brand of the Yanluo Hall Master who had annihilated his village all those years ago and slaughtered his entire town. Later, you hunted Ningbing, sowed discord among the 9 emperors. All of this was orchestrated by your Yanluo Hall. The Heavenly Emperor's voice was frigid. Today, in the name of the Heavenly Emperor, I sentence you to have your soul scattered, never to be reincarnated. The black mark shrieked in agony before dissolving, and the heavens and earth were restored to clarity. The Heavenly Emperor turned to look at the 9 empresses, his gaze sweeping across each of their faces. Bai Ningbing's tears flowed freely, and the sword deity Empress's eyes were brimming with sorrow. Empress Lu Qingcheng lowered her head, unable to speak a word. The remaining empresses wore expressions heavy with guilt. The immortal emperor let out a sigh. Every shadow of the past has its cause. I do not blame you. Bai Ningbing lunged forward, throwing herself into the Heavenly Emperor's embrace. Brother, I am sorry. The Heavenly Emperor gently stroked her hair. You will always be my little sister. The sword deity Empress stepped forward and took his hand. This time I will not let you face the world alone again. The Heavenly Emperor nodded and looked toward the masses, his voice echoing across the heavens and the earth. From this day forward, I shall reclaim the authority of the heavens and the earth. I will set the 3 realms in order and purge the remnants of the Yama Palace to restore peace to the world. If there be any who refuse to submit, come forth to battle. Upon hearing this, no one dared to even breathe, let alone resist. All living beings prostrated themselves in unison. The Heavenly Emperor took the hands of Bai Ningbing and the Sword Empress, stepping toward the Heavenly Emperor's palace. The palace gate swung wide and celestial music resonated. Zhuang glanced back at the reincarnation seal. The images within the seal rested upon the moment the young man and Aishu bid farewell amidst the falling snow. He spoke softly. The suffering of the past has become the stepping stones for our ascent. On the path of the future, I shall walk alongside you both. The reincarnation seal had not yet been put away. The Heavenly Emperor reached out and placed his hand upon the reincarnation seal, his gaze sweeping across their faces, observing the lingering doubts within their hearts. Today, I shall use the reincarnation seal as a mirror to reveal the truth. Radiance flowed within the seal. The images displayed were no longer the falsified past, but rather a hidden side of reality that had long been obscured. 1,000 years ago, deep within the sacred inheritance grounds of the Hehuan sect, Bai Ningbing was in seclusion, attempting to break through to the Emperor realm. The Hehuan plate hovering above her head trembled violently. The remnant soul of the soul-devouring demon lord, which had been sealed away, seized the opportunity to retaliate, its corrupting energy invading her pupil of reincarnation. If the pupil of reincarnation were to be fully demonized, she would become a puppet of the demon lord. At that critical moment, the Heavenly Emperor tore through the void and rushed to her side. He had sensed that his sister was in peril. Disregarding that he himself was on the verge of facing his own heavenly tribulation, he used his own imperial blood as a medium to perform the soul-suppressing eye transplantation technique. He did not extract her eye. Instead, he temporarily grafted the demon soul and the essence of the pupil of reincarnation into his own right eye, using his own imperial soul as a prison to suppress the demonic spirit. The process was agonizing, blood streaming profusely from the Heavenly Emperor's right eye, yet his movements remained as gentle as a falling feather, fearful that he might injure Bai Ningbing's spirit even in the slightest. After the transplantation was consequently, her heavy pupil entered a state of dormancy. The Heavenly Emperor entrusted her to the guardian elder of the Hehuan sect before staggering away into the distance. The Heavenly Emperor's right heavy pupil had been corrupted by demonic energy. From that day forth, he fought with his right eye perpetually closed. The world merely assumed he was blinded by arrogance. Meanwhile, Wang Teng had been secretly lurking within the Hehuan sect for a long time. Seizing the moment before Bai Ningbing could awaken, he used the illusion mirror to warp her memories. The mirror projected a scene of the Heavenly Emperor laughing triumphantly as he gouged out the heavy pupil, accompanied by a distorted, maniacal cackle. This heavy pupil should belong to me. When Bai Ningbing awoke, a searing, agonizing pain radiated from her hollow right eye socket. The hallucinatory image before her eyes had yet to fade. She reached up to touch her empty socket, consumed by a hatred that could reach the heavens. Now at last the truth has been laid bare. Bai Ningbing tremblingly touched her own right eye, where golden light flowed within the pupil. She finally realized that these eyes had never truly left her side. They had only been corrupted, and her brother had used his own eyes to bear the suffering of the demonic erosion for thousands of years. The Heavenly Emperor's right eye slowly opened. Within the pupil, the golden light was gone, leaving only an ordinary black eye. That black soul has been refined by me. Your eyes are now completely purified. The vision within the Samsara Seal shifted to the ancient battlefield of the god Burial Abyss. Ye Xiaoyao stood shoulder to shoulder with the Heavenly Emperor, exploring the depths when they encountered the remains of an emperor, the guardian of the abyss. To protect the Heavenly Emperor, Ye Xiaoyao used his supreme bone to withstand a strike from the emperor. The supreme bone shattered into 360 fragments on the spot, embedding themselves into his heart meridians, a situation hanging by a thread. The Heavenly Emperor burned half of his emperor blood to establish the reversal of heaven array. He reverted Ye Xiaoyao's injuries to the moment before the bone shattered, but the supreme bone itself remained ruined. If those fragments were not extracted entirely, he would perish within 3 days. The Heavenly Emperor used the heaven-severing hand to open Ye Xiaoyao's chest. It was not a brutal extraction, but a process as meticulous as fine embroidery. Step by step, he removed the 360 bone fragment. Each time a fragment was extracted, he replaced it with his own chaos bone marrow to ensure Ye Xiaoyao's cultivation remained unimpaired, to ensure Ye Xiaoyao's cultivation base would not be damaged. After collecting the fragments, the Heavenly Emperor sealed them within the dragon-nurturing coffin. He placed them inside a time-secret realm to recuperate. It would take 10,000 years for them to reform. However, Wang Teng bribed the Heavenly Emperor's inner circle to steal the dragon-nurturing coffin and used an illusion projection stone to fake the scene. When Ye Xiaoyao awoke, he found his supreme bone missing from his chest. In its place lay a jade pendant left by the Heavenly Emperor, which projected a faint illusion. The Heavenly Emperor held the supreme bone in his hand, offering a cold sneer before departing. Ye Xiaoyao looked up toward the heavens and let out a wretched laugh. "Big brother, why did you carve out my bone?" Now that the truth has been laid bare, the Heavenly Emperor summoned the dragon-nurturing coffin from the void. The 360 fragments of the supreme bone fused back together as if they were whole once more. A golden light pierced the heavens as the bone returned to its rightful place. Ye Xiao's aura surged violently. But Zhu wept to find the words. "Brother, I was truly foolish, beyond measure." The scene shifted to the ancestral grounds of the sword god, known as Heaven Sword Peak. It was not the Heavenly Emperor who had slaughtered them, but a collusion between the Burial clan and the Yama Hall. They sought to break the seal of the Corpse Emperor beneath Heaven Sword Peak, which required the bloodline of the sword god's direct descendant as a sacrifice. That night, black rain poured down upon the valley. 100,000 cultivators descended from the skies. The sword god patriarch fought to his death, and in his dying moments used a secret technique to transmit a message, pleading for the Heavenly Emperor's aid. At that time, the Heavenly Emperor was suppressing a chaotic uprising of snow demons in the northern realm. Upon receiving the message, he tore through the void to provide reinforcements. But he arrived a moment too late. The only survivor of the entire clan was the youth Aishu, who had been hiding in the Sword Tomb. The Heavenly Emperor took Aishu and broke through the encirclement. 3 quasi-emperors of the Burial clan pursued them relentlessly. To protect her, the Heavenly Emperor pushed his left eye beyond its limits, unleashing the destructive black light to slay one of the pursuers. He gravely wounded the other 2, but was himself struck by the corpse god's curse. He was forced to retreat and go into hiding to heal his wounds. Wang Teng used a projection stone to record the scene of the Heavenly Emperor, engaged in a fierce battle against the Burial clan, but he edited out the first half of the footage showing the Burial clan massacring the clan, leaving only the moment the Heavenly Emperor swung his sword, where the blade's energy caused collateral damage to the ancestral lands. He even deceived the 3 orphans of the Sword God into believing the Heavenly Emperor was the culprit behind their family's demise. After witnessing the truth within the Reincarnation Seal, the Sword God Empress suddenly drew her blade and shattered the void. Within the sword scar, the remnant spirit of the Patriarch appeared, his voice raspy, "You have finally seen the truth." Ashu put down her sword and stepped before the Heavenly Emperor, gently touching the old scar beneath his left eye. "This scar, it was left behind because you were protecting me, wasn't it?" The Heavenly Emperor took her hand and replied in a soft, low voice. "It is all in the past now." The image of the Reincarnation Seal faded into darkness, leaving behind only the sound of Wang Teng's voice conspiring in secret. "Empress, do you realize that your Lu clan is in truth the White Lotus clan? They are the ones who suppressed the core formation of the Nether Blood Sea. The Celestial Emperor is cultivating demonic arts and conspiring with the Lord of the Blood Sea. In 3 years, the Blood Sea will surely break free, and your entire clan will be sacrificed." Lu Qingcheng retorted in anger, "Lies, His Majesty is absolutely not that kind of man." Wang Teng let out a cold laugh, using the Celestial Emperor's essence blood to conjure a false illusion for the Empress to witness. The vision revealed the Celestial Emperor at the border of the Nether Realm, drinking in the company of a spectral projection of the Blood Sea Lord. Wang Teng continued, "The only solution is to use the Emperor's blood to bathe the White Lotus, which will then seal the Blood Sea. If you cannot bear to do it, I can devise a scheme to feign betrayal and lure him into the Reincarnation Seal. Once the seal is refined, it will automatically extract the purest Emperor's blood. I will then use a secret art to transfer it to the White Lotus, ensuring your clan's safety. If I succeed, I swear I will not take his life, I will only cripple his cultivation. Then you two may retire to a life of seclusion." Lu Qingcheng suffered in torment for months. In the end, faced with the choice between the lives of her clan and her personal feelings, she chose the former. She demanded that Wang Ting swear an oath of the Heavenly Tao. He must absolutely not take the Celestial Emperor's life. Now that the truth has been laid bare, the blood drained from Lu Qingcheng's face. "What of the Blood Sea?" she whispered. The Celestial Emperor sighed softly, waving his hand to project the truth of the Nether border through the Reincarnation Seal. The Emperor was not drinking with the Blood Sea Lord. He was using his own body as a prison to suppress the entity, enduring the agony of blood devouring daily. The surging demonic aura that appeared when his breathing grew unstable was merely the manifestation of his efforts to contain it. "I have never fallen into the demonic path," he said, removing his outer robe. On his chest glowed a brilliant White Lotus seal. The White Lotus of her clan had long been nurtured by his emperor's blood for hundreds of years, and the threat of the Blood Sea had already been resolved 3 years prior. Liu Qingcheng collapsed to the ground, weeping uncontrollably. "I thought I was saving my clan, but all this time, I have been the one harming you." The Celestial Emperor gently helped her up. "I have never held your heart against you." The fragments within the Reincarnation Seal flickered rapidly. The other empresses had all been deceived by Wang Tung using similar schemes. The only son of the 100 Flowers Empress had been afflicted with the soul-devouring goo poison. Wang Teng lied, claiming the poison was planted by the Celestial Emperor and could only be cured upon his death. In reality, the Celestial Emperor had secretly purged the poison, but Wang Teng's illusions had masked the truth. The profound Ice Empress suffered a deviation during her cultivation and required a 10,000-year ice heart to save her life. Wang Teng lied, claiming the ice heart was locked within the Celestial Emperor's treasury. He told her the Celestial Emperor was too stingy to give it up. In truth, the Celestial Emperor had long ago refined the ice heart into an elixir and gifted it to her. Yet, because her vision was clouded by his illusions, she could not see the elixir, seeing instead only the blazing Empress and her tribe faced an existential crisis as their sacred flames were dying. They required the primeval solar flame of the Heavenly Emperor to reignite them. Wang Tung conjured an illusion of the Heavenly Emperor, who cruelly refused, claiming that only by the Emperor's death could the essence of the flame be seized. In truth, the Heavenly Emperor had long ago set aside a portion of that essence, concealing it where she cultivated, though it remained hidden behind a veil of illusions. The Star Moon Empress studied the celestial bodies, receiving a prophecy that the Emperor's star was destined to fall, heralding the birth of a new sovereign. Wang Teng dared to interfere, tampering with the celestial map, deliberately casting the omen of the Emperor's star's fall upon the Heavenly Emperor, while implying that the new sovereign was none other than himself. Yet the true celestial manifestation revealed that the Emperor's star must merely endure a trial to shine with eternal brilliance. The Qingyun Empress had long been devoted to the path of the sword. Wang Teng presented her with the god-slaying sword manual, claiming that only by harboring a heart filled with malice toward the emperor could she master it. Simultaneously, he forged illusions depicting the Heavenly Emperor suppressing her and seizing her sword techniques. In reality, that manual was a demonic art of the imperial rank. Once practiced, one would inevitably succumb to the path of darkness. Upon witnessing the truth of their own delusions, the 5 empresses fell to their knees in tears, overcome with shame for their blinding ignorance. They begged for the Heavenly Emperor's judgment. The Heavenly Emperor spoke calmly, noting that Wang Teng's scheme had preyed upon fear and greed. Human emotions are fragile. You falling for his trap was not your fault, but rather my failure to recognize the danger and protect you in time. The Heavenly Emperor stepped toward the center of the reincarnation seal. His left eye gleamed with a brilliant golden light, using the seal as a mirror to illuminate all hidden truths. From this moment forth, the 3 realms would hold no more grievances, as the golden light swept across the heavens and the earth. All corrupted memories and veiled truths transformed into a rain of light, scattering across the mortal world. All living beings who had once doubted the Heavenly Emperor finally beheld the truth. Their regret, shame, and reverence converged into a torrential tide. The Heavenly Emperor's aura surged once more, transcending the limits of the Great Emperor, stepping into the realm of the reincarnation Heavenly Emperor. Looking down upon all living beings, his voice resonated like the final verdict of the heavens. From this day forward, the laws of the 3 realms are rewritten. I establish the heaven-observing mirror to oversee the world. The wrong may speak their truth, and the wicked shall have nowhere to hide. As eternal peace dawned, the reincarnation seal transformed into a colossal stele piercing the heavens, erected before the gates of the celestial palace. Named the Steel of Truth, it stands forever to suppress all hypocrisy and treacherous schemes in this world. The Heavenly Emperor took the hands of Bai Ningbing and the sword goddess Empress, walking toward the palace gates, then glancing back once more. His gaze swept over the masses. The agony of the past had merely been the prelude to the path of the future. You and I shall walk this road together. This work delivers a tale filled with drama, poignant emotion, and unexpected twists regarding sacrifice, familial bonds, and the journey to restore justice. Throughout the story lies the internal struggle of the characters, particularly the contrast between the cold, ruthless exterior of the Heavenly Emperor and the truth hidden behind his actions. A dramatic plot filled with unexpected twists. The story begins with a heartbreaking tragedy where the Heavenly Emperor is betrayed by those closest to him, including his own younger sister Bai Ningbing, who joined forces to seal him within the Samsara Seal. However, the Samsara Seal inadvertently becomes a mirror of truth, exposing the hidden shadows of the Heavenly Emperor's past. Using the Samsara Seal to revisit the past is a masterful narrative technique, one that cultivates curiosity and ensnares the reader. Piece by piece, the fragments of memory are revealed, decoding the actions of the Heavenly Emperor that once seemed so cruel, from the extraction of Bai Ningbing's ocular powers to the harvesting of Lin Xiaoyao's supreme bones. The truth, once laid bare, not only vindicates the Heavenly Emperor but also unmasks the true face of Wang Teng, the mastermind behind every tragedy. Constant plot twists keep the reader reeling from one shock to the next, driving the narrative to its absolute climax. Silent sacrifice and boundless love. The most significant highlight of this work is the silent, selfless sacrifice of the Heavenly Emperor. Beneath his cold and ruthless exterior lies a warm heart prepared to endure every agony. He carries the weight of unjust grievances to protect those he holds dear. The fact that the Heavenly Emperor tore out his own eyes, enduring the torment of demonic energy devouring his soul for a millennium to protect Bai Ningbing, or burning half of his emperor blood, and using his own chaotic bone marrow to save Lin Xiaoyao are the clearest testaments to his boundless love and noble sacrifice. Multi-dimensional character development. The characters in this work are crafted with depth, transcending the simple dichotomy of good and evil. Bai Ningbing, the Sword Empress, and Liu Qingcheng were all victims of illusions conjured by Wang Teng, which led them to misunderstand and harbor resentment toward the Heavenly Emperor. Their subsequent torment and regret upon discovering the truth add profound layers to the story. Wang Teng, the primary antagonist, is portrayed as cunning and ruthless, stopping at nothing to achieve his ambitions. The fitting retribution he meets at the story's end provides a deeply satisfying conclusion for the reader, a journey of seeking justice and forgiveness. This work is not merely a tale of vengeance, but a journey toward reclaiming justice and finding forgiveness. The Heavenly Emperor bears no malice toward those who misunderstood and harmed him. Instead, he uses his strength to restore order to the 3 realms, bringing lasting peace to the world. The Heavenly Emperor's capacity for forgiveness heals the emotional wounds of the Empresses, paving the way for a brighter future for all. In conclusion, this is a moving story regarding family ties, silent sacrifice, and the enduring power of truth. A dramatic plot, unexpected narrative knots, and multidimensional character building create a compelling work, leaving a lasting resonance in the hearts of its readers. Although some segments depict pain with vivid detail, such intensity only serves to further illuminate the grandeur of the Heavenly Emperor's sacrifice. This is a must-read for anyone who appreciates the xianxia and xuan genres, especially those who enjoy a touch of profound